from the 10 million signatures, what way Right Honorable Raila Odinga, what way President William Ruto, even as he steers the country forward, and so much more. Certainly it will be good to hear from you. The hashtag as always is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV 47KE 22047 is the SMS short code. I'll be looking at some of your comments as we continue with the broadcast. Also, you can call us live. The number to call will be running down on your screen. But for now, we'll start off by taking a look at the newspapers. Also, just a reminder, later on in the day or in the broadcast, we'll be having our very own Dennis, unpacking what has played out in the world of sports over the weekend, even as they enlighten you on what to expect as the week comes in. So once again, karibu sana. It's always good having you. My name is Linda Lela. This is Morning Cafe, and the broadcast begins right away. We first off take a look at the newspapers. We have the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, as well as the People Daily. Those are the papers that we look at this morning briefly. Most of these stories more or less the same, as of course we take a look at what they speak to, and we also speak to some of them later on with the lady and gentleman that we'll be having. I'll be having Betty Adera, as well as Professor Macharia Munene and Professor Fred Ogola to help us unpack these very stories. So before it gets to that point, allow us to look at what is on the Daily Nation and the Standard newspaper and the People Daily. We all understand that it's not been all rosy between the minority leader, that is Opiyo Wandayi, and John Mbadi, who was then also the minority boss. Of course, this mantle being taken away from him. That is from the Uhuru Times, or the Uhuru Government Times. That is on the 12th Parliament, and on the 13th Parliament, it is given to Wandayi. But then again, he is out here, John, saying that, well, it's not been good. Perhaps his performance has been below expectation. A story captured on page 8. Is it a way of showing that there's a rift in the ODM party? Remember, very many people almost felt like Mbadi would defect immediately. But then again, luckily, he also got nominated to Parliament. What is this that informs the bad blood? We'll certainly be trying to unpack that. But away from it, we also have a story on matters bonuses for Safaricom, even as they bag these numerous amounts. A story on the business beat. Away from it, there's a sports beat where the question of the day is, where does the rank among EPL's best? That Dennis will be answering shortly. That is towards the last hour of the program alongside Albanas. And away from it, back to what it is that perhaps we'll speak to. No place for small tribes in public service. That is a story or a report, of course, according to members of parliament. Do you agree to it? It shows a skewed composition of civil servants and a huge ethnic imbalance in employment sector, with a few communities taking the bulk of these slots. And in some government institutions, one community can actually occupy close to about 40% of the positions. And so the gender aspect, or the gender rule, is also foreign in the civil service. Story captured on page 4. What informs this? And I remember last week we had a session where we extensively spoke about representation, and some tribes complaining that, well, they've not received, a balance in terms of what the constitution dictates. And, most of the people have questioned how, the president is picking up his appointees, and how definitely also we're creating that balance in these cadres of, leadership. But even worse, now this report speaks to the entire civil service. There was a consistent pattern of exclusion of some communities among institutions that appeared before the committee. And of course, in most institutions, it is visible that some communities have been excluded from employment at all cadres. This is according to Mandera West Member of Parliament, Yusuf Adam Haji. What informs this? We also wait to see just how best then they would seek to address that, even as we continue to, struggle with the question of gender. The 2/3 gender rule, as expected by the Constitution, has not been met in the country just yet. And this story about the unease of a US-Ukraine cluster bomb deal, of course, is the decision that quickly criticized, or was criticized by human rights. where the several allies of the United States expressed unease as Washington decided, that is, to supply Ukraine with cluster bombs. And on Friday, the United States confirmed it was sending the controversial weapons to Ukraine. Well, with President Joe Biden calling it a very difficult decision to have made. And so this unease grows. And of course, we see Amnesty International saying that cluster munitions pose a grave threat. Civilian or perhaps civilian lives are at risk, even as the long unended conflict continues in Ukraine. What informs this and what will be the ramifications? Of course, it's a global conversation, and we'll be following up closely to see what then they decide moving forward, or what then will be decided across. And shock for 3,000 schools without head teachers. And this is quite an unfortunate report. As you can evidently see, the findings by the president or the presidential working force or working party on the question of education reforms show that apart from head teachers missing, there is a huge deficit of teachers across the country. A story captured on page 10. And we're looking at these numbers here as captured. Top 5 county secondary deficit, the county and the teachers needed. And of course, you can evidently see that the numbers are not quite good. We're talking about Kakamega, Bungoma, Nakuru, and the digits, as well indicated there. Top 5 counties deficit, teachers needed deficit. Definitely also Kisumu, Kilifi, Narok, Kakamega, and Kitui. What really needs to be required, the numbers of teachers that are there vis-a-vis the students, and we certainly hope that this is going to be streamlined at the level of the Ministry of Education. Away from it to the Daily Nation, it speaks to the unfortunate accidents that we have witnessed in the country, and you're speaking of very many lives lost, more than 60 in just 1 week, from that Londiani accident to what played out yesterday, and numerous other crashes that actually have not been reported. Speeding, human error, and poor road design blamed for these very crashes and the highways of death. We also had an extensive conversation here with an engineer the other week that is speaking to what needs to be done in the question of making sure that we have the right infrastructure or the right roads for the users. And Kenyan roads are deadly, taking lives at will every day. It's users alive one moment and gone the next, while some are left with injuries that actually will scar them for the rest of time. And it speaks to the lives that we've lost since January, and certainly also, unfortunately, just looking at the numbers right from around 2020 coming to this beat, it's not been all good. And also highlighting the black spots. I mean, every time you're using the roads, you need to be careful, especially on this spots, making sure that you also are considerate of those ones that are using the road. So they've spoken to the numerous cases of accidents and the different parts in the country. You can always grab a copy and get to see this. But of importance is that we need to be careful on the roads. On the other side, on bits of politics, Kalonzo is the man. Wiper members of parliament are telling the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and Wiper party leader Kalonzo Musyoka allies have trained their guns. That is, of course, on Azimio chief Raila Odinga, urging him to proceed and support Mr. Kalonzo Musyoka to start probing him or preparing him as well to face the president, that is President William Ruto, the next election 2027, led by Makueni Senator Dan Manzo. Well, they said it was now time for Mr. Odinga to return the favor. Story captured on page 8. Whether he returns the favor or not is a question of wait and see. NAT issues notice to TSC over salary talks. This in regards to matters, education. NAT has issued a 14-day ultimatum to the teacher's employer, that is to convene a meeting to review the CBA, and of course as signed in 2021. Will they yield to this or not? We can only wait to see what plays out in relation to the same. And then briefly, we also have the People Daily. What is on the People Daily on this 10th day? On Matter Sports, fresh blood raises hope as the athletes are ready to conquer in Budapest, and we'll be having reports of that later on in the broadcast. And revealed Kenya's big disease burden. This is a story that is on the front page of the People Daily. Fresh data on health. Well, bad lifestyle choices among the leading causes of ill health among adults as well as children are still suffering from largely preventable ailments, and that data is showing what interventions are needed to make sure that Kenyans are more healthy. A story captured on page 4 and page 5, is on the front page, expounded on these very important pages. It is important that you grab a copy and get to understand what are some of the mitigation measures that you need to put on board so that you are healthy. Britannia on the verge of crumbling, is it so? And of course, we all understand that we grew up enjoying this. Biscuit maker on the brink of liquidation despite successful run. What could have informed this? I mean, basically, most of the industries are not doing well in the country. And the question is what really informs this. And so we'll be looking at all that. Also, on this interesting story that I did not pick much on, corridors of justice, Coca-Cola ordered to put nutrient details on its glass bottles. And of course, this is according to the appellate court that has upheld the decision delivered 5 years ago that is directing soft drinks maker to put nutritional information on their glasses or their glass bottles, as captured on page 6 of the Daily Nation. We have shelved as well the papers that allow us to briefly look at some of the stories that we have prepared here before we get to the discussion. And according to the 2022 report that is from the World Health Organization, there are over 40 million people worldwide who are HIV positive in Kenya. Therefore, okay, this is quite interesting, 40 million people worldwide who are HIV positive. And of course, there are more than 1 million individuals receiving antiretroviral therapy, but a significant number of people remain unaware of their status. Let's take a look at that.
Despite decades of global campaigns against stigma for people living with HIV/AIDS, the virus seems to persist, with many HIV-positive Kenyans in rural areas are facing stigma even from their own family members.
Nilipopata mtoto wa pili kwenda clinics, hapo ndio nilijua hali yangu na nilichukulia kwa uzito sana, sababu niliona kama huyo ndo mwisho wa maisha yangu, sababu nilisikia watu wakiwa positive hawakai. Nilichukulia na uzito na sikujikubali.
We visit Mumbone village in Machakos sub-county where we meet Rose Mwelo, who has been living with the virus since 2012.
Nimezaliwa wasichana 6, hakuna kijana. So unapata kuna wenye wanaelewa kama wawili hivi, lakini wale wengine kuna dharau na mama hajaikubali. Ananiona ni kama bad. Hata hivyo, mimi nasema stigma haifai na maisha ni marefu. Sasa vile nilitoka huko, nilipata kazi kwa Msomali, Nairobi. Ndio nilikuja nikapatana na huyu mwingine. Na hali ilikuwa tu kama hii yangu. Sasa aliponiambia kwa positive, mimi nikaona sasa niko na mtu kama mimi mwenye atanielewa. So tukakaa, ndio nilikuja nikapata mimba ya huyu. Wakati nikiwa na mimba ndio nilipata ajali na akafariki. Na sikuweza kuhudhuria hiyo matanga. Niliteseka hiyo Nairobi, sababu nilikuwa naogopa nyumbani.
Rose looks physically fit, but something has been bothering her for a long time: stigma. She narrates a sad tale of how stigma continues to affect people living with the virus.
Wakati wa kurudi ulipofika, ndio niliamua nipeleke mtoto nyumbani huko. Nakumbuka huyo mtoto alikuwa amegonjeka, sababu nilikuwa namwacha daycare. Nikienda vibarua. kukuja nyumbani vile nilipiga simu nikiwa kwa uwanja. Nikuje kuchukuliwa na mtu tupeleke mtoto hospitali. Nikaambiwa sisangu mahari imeletwa nyumbani, kwa hivyo hakuna mtu atakuja. Ule anti yangu mwenye alinipeleka hospitali wakati nilikuwa mgonjwa ndio alikuja. Kaniambia hata akikataa kuja, acha tupeleke mtoto hospitali. Na vile nilizaa mtoto ni Mungu tu. Alita negative, nilikuwa nataka tukufe tu. Hata ikiwezekana nikiwa ndo hiyo mkubwa, tupate ajali, tuangamie.
According to the National Systemic Disease Control Council, early marriages, domestic violence, and new HIV infections have contributed to increased stigma towards HIV survivors. Carol Kinoti from the National Systemic Disease Control Council acknowledges that despite efforts to sensitize communities about stigma towards HIV survivors, there is still a missing gap in compacting the issue.
99 adolescents and young people getting new HIV infections every week. And you can imagine when that is happening, that also brings in aspects of sexual gender-based violence and adolescent pregnancies.
A recent report indicates a drop in new HIV infections in the country, but the youth remain the most affected group. And non-government organizations like IREP emphasizes the need for more sensitization efforts.
Most people living with HIV, they face self-stigma, community or societal stigma, and this is contributed by lack of information on HIV. First, as a person, if I'm facing self-stigma, seeking support from organizations that implement HIV programs where they can get support like psychosocial support, and they can get other people living with HIV who they can talk to and support them, share their stories, share their worries, and then they can get support. Then for the society, we are supposed to educate our society and our communities to understand that HIV is not a killer disease, and for them to embrace each and every person living with HIV, and just letting them know that HIV does not define anyone. It does not, even it is not their identity.
In Machakos County, stigma affects individuals of all age groups. According to Machakos LCECM Daniel Yumbia, one way to combat stigma and reduce HIV infections is by holding accountable those who knowingly infect young individuals with the virus.
We must strengthen our efforts to create safe space for our adolescents, raise awareness among their rights, and ensure perpetrators are held accountable for their actions.
Nicholas Mbaig reporting for TV 47.
And an autopsy on the body of Father Joseph Kariuki, who was pronounced dead Saturday morning in Kenol, Murang'a County, is set to be conducted in the course of the week. In an exclusive phone interview with TV 47, Katanga Sub-County Police Commander Lawrence Njeru has stated that the woman who had accompanied the priest in Kenol has recorded a statement pending further investigations.
It is alleged that Father Joseph Kariuki became unconscious Friday evening while in the company of his girlfriend in a hotel in Kenol, Murang'a County. According to the Gatanga Sub-County Police Commander Lawrence Njeru, the woman aged 32 years sought help from the hotel's management in order to rush him to hospital.
The culprit act quickly, akaenda akaamusha management ya Mona Lisa Hotel, ambao walienda wakaona vile yako. The manager akatoa dereba na one of the staffs wakaaccompany the gari. Dereba alichukua hiyo gari ya father Aria make ni Haria, okay, black in color. Wakachukua father na hiyo dereba ya hiyo hotel wakapeleka yeye to hospitali Keno.
On arrival at Kenol Hospital, Kariuki was pronounced dead by a physician, with his body lying on the back seat of his black Toyota Harrier, covered with a hotel bedsheet. According to a police report from the Samuru police station, where the woman went to report the matter, the body of the priest had white foam oozing from the mouth and nose. The sub-county police commander has further indicated that the woman was well known to the priest, as they had been in a relationship with the 32-year-old woman for more than 6 years, and that they have been working together at the St. Peter's Church in Ruai, Nairobi County.
No, girlfriend ya kusema chochote.
Okay.
Yeye alituambia tu ni hiyo business, aliona father amepata na kuanza kutoa hiyo pofu na mdomo.
Ndio.
So we have yes to establish.
Okay.
After postmortem kama alikuwa ametumia dawa or what caused the death.
Kariuki's body was first taken to Montezuma Mortuary in Murang'a County, but was later transferred to Mata Hospital in Nairobi following the request of the Catholic Church in Ruai. The woman has so far been questioned and released pending further investigations.
Now, a post-mortem examination conducted at Embu Referral Hospital mortuary has revealed shocking details about the death of Josephine Karemi, a 24-year-old woman. The results indicate that she was strangled to death, leading to a gruesome and painful end. Additionally, the examination revealed that her left hand and rib were broken, and further indicating a brutality of her death.
The father to Josephine, Simon Kivuti, narrated how his daughter went to work on Wednesday, the 28th of June, but did not return home. He was later informed that she did not go to work either. The search for her late daughter began but was unsuccessful since she was unreachable and no one knew her whereabouts. Days later, a suspect who worked as a groundsman, Boniface Yakulula, led the police to a pit latrine within the church compound, where the body was retrieved and taken to Embu Level 5 Hospital mortuary. The assailant, whose motive was rape according to the detectives, used a blunt object to inflict injuries on the young woman. A court in Runyenjes allowed the police to hold the main suspect for 14 days for further investigations.
Now, the victims of an Embu fire incident that has so far rendered 8 families homeless have explained the chronology of the events that led to their fire, as they call on the country or the county government to speed up their help in ensuring they acquire a new place to stay. Jackson Chacha with more.
Gideon Japheth, a carpenter and a tenant in Majengo, Embu County, is a homeless man. Japheth is counting losses of his long-term carpentry investment after all of his tools were razed by fire on the material day earlier last week. Japheth explains of the unexpected fire, but he is representing just a small fraction of the losses that were incurred in this place.
Yote hakuna, hata sufuria yote imechomeka. Sasa sina la kufanya kwa sababu vile waniona mie ni hivyo tu.
Felista Mdhomi, a student at the nearby school, lost her important academic documents alongside other properties that she could not manage to salvage.
Naomba tu serikali waweze kutusaidia penye wataweza, kama kupata ID na kupata hizo certificates. Juu kama kufanya mtihani, huwezi fanya mtihani kama una vitu zingine, ID certificates. Huwezi kufanya kama una hizo vitu.
A few tenants who had managed to save a few of their properties during the inferno lost them all to thugs who took the advantage of the situation to cut away with their belongings, leaving them with nothing valuable at hand.
Mimi hata nimebaki na kitanda. Sasa kitanda nitalala mattress, mtu ananiambia gazi zilikuwa 2, kuna mtu nilikuwa nimewekea gazi yake. Yangu ilikuwa imefill, hata sioni, hata sina hata gas moja. Nguo sina, niko hivyo venye niko.
The angry residents who have blamed the firefighting team over alleged negligence have led to 5 officers from the fire department interdicted by Embu Governor Cecil Mbarire as she calls for more investigation into the matter.
And even after we got the fire engine from Kirinyaga, they did not bother to go and support the Kirinyaga team. Now that has really bothered me, because with the information I have, it's like there's some sabotage going on in that department.
Local leaders have lined up to support the efforts made by the governor in weeding out rogue officers from the county so as to prevent similar occurrences in future. Jackson Chacha, TV47.
Now, in response to the growing global concern about food safety and standards, the county government of Nakuru has partnered with the Center for Agriculture and Bioscience International, KABI, to launch a campaign aimed at reducing the risks associated with the pesticides in the food value chain. The campaign also focuses on raising awareness about environmentally friendly biocontrol and biopractice products. Our reporter Chichi Josephine with more on that.
Farmers in Nakuru are now aware of the biopest control method that makes use of pathogens and keeps pest populations low, after an unknown farm training session in Subukia sub-county as a part of a process to streamline Kenya's food production. According to them, they had been enlightened on companion plants that repel pests naturally when grown next to crops and will practice the control methods.
Kizingatia ukweli ya kwamba the global market ina demand watu wapunguze utumiaji wa madawa. We are very happy kwa initiative hii ya Ukulima True sababu inashabikia kupunguza kutumia madawa.
Nimelana lot, sikuwa najua kuna kuanga na traps za avocado, ndio at least mumea avocado ni kuena more fruits, sikuwa najua, na vile tunaweza trap hizo insects, sikuwa ninajua.
The initiative dubbed Ukulima True is part of a process to streamline Kenya's food production systems to align them with the sanitary and phytosanitary standard guidelines for producing safe food.
Tunapata afueni wakati we have the biological products. Zimenisaidia sana kwa sababu angalau unapata pesa inabaki kwa mfuko na product yenye unatoa ni salama kwangu because I'm the first consumer na pia kwa mwenye ninauzia.
According to Deputy Director KABI Africa Dr. Monica Kansime, excessive use and misuse of pesticides is causing loss of biodiversity, destroying beneficial insect populations and reducing food safety.
We want farmers to learn on how to use their pesticides, the agrochemicals, and reducing the usage of the agrochemicals. We want them to know that by using too much of it, it's affecting the customers. There's something we call the pre-harvest interval. So we find that most of our farmers don't absorb the pre-harvest interval. And the minute you harvest your produce with the chemicals, the customer or the client who is buying the product is going to consume that chemicals.
Through the program that will run up to December 2023, smallholder farmers are being trained to adopt good agricultural practices to ensure healthy crops and lower the risk of contaminating produce with dangerous pathogens or agrochemicals.
The main idea here is to make sure that the products produced here in Subukia, that is the tomatoes, the avocados and other products that we have here, are safe for consumption here locally and also there outside the market.
Pesticides can persist in the environment for decades, pollute water resources and pose a threat to the entire ecological system, according to the County Agribusiness Officer, Ms. Miriam Kinyanjui.
We want the farmers to know, if you use those chemicals, you should also be careful of how you use it because of our environment. How do you dispose your containers? Again, if you spray it as a farmer, do you care about your health yourself?
The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that nearly 3 million people are poisoned and 200,000 people die every year. In Kenya, about 350,000 cases of pesticide poisoning are reported annually.
As such, this campaign will strengthen the already existing efforts by the county government to enhance awareness of food safety and shift behaviors of stakeholders aimed at reducing food safety risks during production, transportation, and distribution.
Chichi Josephine, TV47.
Still in the same matters, the government has placed a significant emphasis on sustainable farming practices, aiming to enhance food and nutrition security while equally building resilience against climate change. This strategy focuses, and of course, this focus is aimed at ensuring a consistent food supply, promoting good nutrition and mitigating the impact of climate change, as our very own Chichi Josephine reports again.
Agriculture has been noted to be hugely vulnerable to climate change, particularly in Kenya, where farmers bear the brunt of irregular rainfall patterns. In this regard, state agencies, in collaboration with partners from the county government, local and international firms, and research institutions, have been working to build capacity of both smallholder and large-scale farmers in practicing sustainable agriculture in Kenya.
We like to have a holistic approach to how we interact with our plants, whether it's crop protection, protecting from pests and diseases, or the uptake of nutrients and the health of the roots.
However, climate change is not only threatening food security, but is also contributing to the loss of biodiversity.
This has affected crop productivity and has resulted to increased pest incidences and severity, which has led to reduced yield and increased loss respectively.
The soil deterioration factor has to be arrested and soil health factors have to be increased.
Climate-smart agriculture is said to be working as the solution to erratic weather patterns, as it involves actions that sustainably increase productivity and enhance adaptation.
In order to overcome these challenges, farmers need to adopt climate-smart technology, which make crop more resilient to high temperature, low precipitation, and tolerant to pests and diseases.
Stakeholders have noted that biofertilizers improve availability of plant nutrients to the roots through association and are also free-living bioorganisms that fix nutrients in the soil.
With abuse and excessive use of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, we have to realize soil microbial population has eroded.
Soil scientist Devana said high soil acidity and nutrient depletion were threatening Africa's food security.
We have a lot of soil tillage factors. Soil erosion of the topsoil. We have got salinity increase, lot of dryness increasing it.
Nakuru Deputy Governor David Kones expressed concern that traditional approaches towards soil fertility, including organic farming and low external input, have failed due to low availability of inputs by smaller holders, leading to land degradation.
Well-managed soil allows our farmers to produce more. We need to reduce erosion, maximize water infiltration, improve nutrient cycling, save money on inputs, and ultimately improve the resiliency of the farms.
Chichi Josephine, TV47.
Now, Sudan is on the brink of a full-scale civil war. Those are the words of United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who Saturday evening, through an official statement, condemned an airstrike that left at least 22 people reportedly killed in Omdurman 3 months after Sudan's rival generals fell out with each other. Over 3,000 people have been killed as the situation continues to deteriorate with each passing day. Our reporter Dennis Otieno tells us more.
Conflict between Sudan's military, led by General Abdel Fattah Burhan, and Rapid Support Forces RSF, commanded by General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, continued to tear the nation apart after an airstrike Saturday in Omdurman city killed at least 22 people and left scores of civilians injured. The latest combative incident over the past 3 months of war in Sudan was heavily castigated by United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres through an official statement, as he warned that the country is on the brink of a full-scale civil war which could destabilize the entire region. A video posted by the Health Ministry on social media revealed the full extent of the damage caused by the airstrike, with dismembered bodies lying on the ground, several women and children being among the victims. The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces RSF, fighting the regular army, claimed that the airstrikes killed 31 people, a claim vehemently denied by the armed forces, which through a statement clarified that they did not engage with any hostile targets in Omdurman. Around 3,000 people have been killed since the conflict began as the paramilitaries establish bases in residential areas, and civilians have been caught in the crossfire when armed forces battle the RSF. Reports indicate that there were more airstrikes near the presidential palace in central Khartoum Sunday morning, as well as machine gun clashes and artillery fire in the city's south. With numerous ceasefires in the war being announced and ignored, leaders from Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia and South Sudan are set to Monday morning meet in Addis Ababa for further mediation talks between Sudan's army chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and RSF commander Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, who have not confirmed their attendance. Dennis Otieno, TV 47.
Now, German police Saturday fired tear gas and used water cannons to quell unrest at a controversial Eritrean music festival in the town of Gisen, during which 26 police were injured. And the regional police said that the 26 injured officers were mainly due to incidents of stone throwing, adding that around 100 arrests were made. About 1,000 of police were deployed in the town of 80,000 residents north of Frankfurt after last year's edition of the festival degenerated into violence. Now, the opposition co-principal Kalonzo Musyoka has maintained that demonstrations against high cost of living occasioned by what he termed as punitive taxes will go on until President William Ruto's government heeds to the cries of Kenyans regarding the current tax regime. The Wiper leader urged Kenyans to come out in large numbers on Wednesday after Azimio leader Raila Odinga announced to stage anti-government protests, as Micah Gungo details.
Azimio la Umoja One Kenya co-principal Kalonzo Musyoka has blasted police in Nairobi, where opposition leader Raila Odinga staged a rally in Kamukonje grounds for being violent. Speaking in Utawala in Nairobi Sunday, the Wiper leader said police in Machakos County on Friday behaved professionally compared to men in uniform here in Nairobi, where he alleged were misused to an extent of threatening Odinga's life.
Kuna ingine wanaweza kupatiwa wrong and constitutional command na unaweza ukakataa. I'm not saying uanze kubishana na county commander wako wa police, lakini wewe ukifikiria ni mwananchi, uko na watoto, usiumize jamii wa Kenya wako, na unajua katiba inakupa uwezo kuwa an independent and national police service.
Azimio la Umoja on Friday launched the signature collection drive aimed at ousting President William Ruto. Kalonzo says one of the reasons they began the collection drive was to protest statements made by some leaders in the government. Talked of shareholding, Kalonzo maintaining that the country has more than 42 tribes with equal shares in the government.
Then you begin to say the nation is not a nation, it's a company. A company. And you have to buy your shares. This is where Wakenya sema no, hatutakubali. Hiyo hatutakubali. It is one of the items ambao tunakusanya sahihi kusema hatuwezi kukubali kuwa kampuni.
Even as the opposition plans to take back to streets in protest against the government, Kalonzo says they will not achieve anything if the demos will be met with violence.
Mtu asiwe, kama if you believe in the change you are looking for, don't believe in violence. Gaucho mwenyewe ameumia. You can't achieve anything through violence. You can't. Ketini chini.
Kalonzo has, however, not been briefed by Odinga on the resumption of peaceful demos, but believes the former Prime Minister is committed to protect Kenyans.
We have not met to plan what is happening. I saw my friend Raila may announce tutarudi huko Wednesday. Hatujaonana, tutaenda tuongee, tuone the next thing. But we must, one thing we must, and I repeat, avoid violence.
Makueni Senator Dan Manzo opined that the government has proven to be insensitive by imposing brutal taxation rates in the Finance Act of 2023 without heeding the dire situation at hand. On June 30th, the court suspended the implementation of the Finance Act following a petition by Busia Senator Okiya Omtata.
The current Finance Act is a fraud to Kenyans. There was fraud in Parliament. Na tena pale kwa bunge ni ukora mtubu ulitumika kupitisha ile finance bill.
Na hakuna finance bill ilikuwa ngumu kama hii. Juu hata mkidiscuss, mkubaliane kama committee, mnapigiwa simu mnaambiwa hapana, murudi pale pale.
However, following April's amendment of value-added tax requirement on fuel from 8% to 16%, Manzo says the authority's managing director should be thrown behind bars.
Tumesema watu wa IPRA, kila director ambao tumepeana service, ambaye alienda kukaa Jama, akainua bei ya mafuta, yeye anafaa kufungwa. Maanake alidharau koti. Hiyo ndio kesi tutakuwa tukifanya kesho ya kufunga hao madirector kila mmoja.
The leaders were speaking Sunday during a church fundraiser in Utawala, Nairobi County. Mike Kagwongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
All right, and I'm told that we're on air. Welcome back to the broadcast from that story. And we now get to introduce the lady and gentleman that I have on set this morning as we await for one of them to join us shortly. It's a pleasure to have you, Professor Fred Ogola. Thank you so much for creating time. I have begun with you, much as they say, ladies first. Yeah?
Yes.
Men before, unless somebody else said so.
Here you begin with the guys outside government, you know. You see, Mheshimiwa Betty is right there, so they're not scared by who starts.
You know, I'm glad that you're the one who's bringing this up. I was a little bit skeptical as to whether I should bring it up or not. I think as telling them this story, that I am of the habit of checking up on what CSs or CSs, not CSs, CSs do, and what they say on their pages, and you know what they have done and all that. And ICT CS one day drops these photos and these comments down there that I was delighted to do this, that, and everything. And therein I see the photo of Betty, whom I have known as an Azimio diehard, all of a sudden has crossed borders. If she was a member of parliament today, she would have been amongst the likes of Jalango, the ones that have been castigated. Betty Adera Mushimio, thank you so much for creating time to be here with us.
You're welcome. And just to say that there's time for everything.
There's time for everything.
And there are reasons behind every decision.
You want to speak to your lovers and your supporters, you know, because you've been out of the public domain for quite a while, or let's just say these spaces of TV, and now that you're back, perhaps those ones that are your followers, and on TV 47 would love to understand what is this that you know triggered this time.
Actually, I've just not been within the TV 47 space, but I have been on media. And my recollection of the last time we met, TV 47 was not here.
It was not here, it was on the other side.
It was on the other side.
I should be saying Happy New Year, Merry Christmas,
Merry Christmas and all that. And anyhow, I'm glad to be here. And for me and to my supporters and fans out there, it was just about time. It was just about time. and it's about looking at which side is out there that can actually positively impact my own life as a Kenyan, as a woman, as a mother, but also Kenyans at large.
Are you pleased with the way the government is running affairs? Because and we all know that we have the social media, we have these statistics that are always carried around, and data perhaps would speak to the fact that Kenyans are not really pleased. Why do you convince yourself that the government side is the best side for you as a Kenyan and individually as Betty?
Your question is, am I pleased with how the government is run?
Basically, that's the question. Yes.
All right. So we are looking at a government that has been in office less than a year, about 8-9 months maybe.
Right.
And taking a big chunk of that 8-9 months to structure the government, to put it in place, right? And to date, with a government that's less than a year, I'm actually happy. One, with the promise. 2, with the plans that are coming, short-term, long-term. And 3, with the immediate steps that have been taken this far to ensure that there are mitigative measures to women, to youth, to Kenyans, insofar as the high cost of living, is concerned. And, for example, appreciating that, specifically speaking about high cost of living, you realize that matters economy, there are some that can be mitigated in country, but there are some that the forces are really of an international nature, impacting all manner of governments, not just Kenya alone.
Yeah.
But I'm happy really to report that one, the CS that you quote, ICT, Honorable Eli Dowalo, for instance, just recently educated Kenyans on the layout of the digital economy space.
Right.
That would really be a low-hanging fruit for our young people, our women, everybody, to tap into that space and use the available enablement, to secure their own income and to interact and to, just grow.
Yeah.
That is one. Secondly, if you look at the way the government sort of removed subsidies on food, on fuel, just specifically, that as an example, you realize that previously the government was spending almost like 15 billion a month, just on subsidies alone. But what is this government doing? This government is looking at short and long term. What can we do now? What can we do in the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years of its term before they come back to Kenyans and seek probably, another mandate? So we're looking at subsidies being pushed towards production.
Okay.
For example, subsidies in fertilizers. So the cost of fertilizer is like almost, half, from 7K maybe to 2,000, 3,500 thereabout. For what? To just boost, the Kenyan farmer so that they can have a bumper harvest. And we are anticipating a bumper harvest actually this time around, so that there is food. Recently, the cabinet approved tax-free importation, of maize and of rice. For what? So that there's enough in country and that there's enough, the laws of demand and supply, will come into play to significantly lower, the cost of those commodities which are core to Kenyans, if I just mention a few. Now, for their bottom-up economic transformation plan, there are very specific things that are already in place. There was the launch of the Hustler Fund, almost like running into billions.
Okay.
And just recently, in the Madaraka Day, just the other day, the president himself, launched another phase 2, of the microloan plan. And so far, to my understanding, about over 5,000 groups, now these are not individuals, these are groups, are tapping into those spaces to see how to expand the small and medium-sized businesses,
right,
that they are already doing for what? To expand the income, their income capability, and just cushion themselves against the tough times that globally everybody is experiencing.
All right, so I will perhaps switch this question to Professor and ask him, why are you not in government, such that you say that, it is only fair that we allow those ones that are in government to perhaps speak later. So what stops you from being in government? I thought it's an individual, prerogative, or perhaps it's your interest to decide what side you want to align yourself with. So what stops you from being in government, looking at the beautiful things that Betty articulates about what the government has done so far and what it intends to do?
Linda, first of all, unfortunately that during the campaign, I had put up serious articles that I wrote that bottoms up cannot work in Kenya. Yeah. It has never worked anywhere. And it is actually proven now that it's not working. The fact that we are seeing the dollar getting worse, actually not the dollar getting worse, the Kenya shilling depreciating significantly against the foreign currencies. The fact that we are seeing that there's a lot of, if you like, unemployment increasing. Actually, survey shows unemployment has gone up, inflation has gone up, poverty index has gone up. Now, we are looking at the issue of repayment of loans. For example, let me just be specific now. In March, if you look at it, William Ruto went and negotiated the deal with the oil in UAE. And the promise was that was going to reduce the strain on the dollar. Now, in this week, we heard that he's sending the CS Treasury and Energy to UAE to renegotiate those deals because they're not working. Because Kenya needs to pay, if you like, and I quote here, around 70 billion shillings out of the 420 billion shillings of the deal they had with the UAE. And now, look, that move didn't help because by that time, the dollar was 128. Now it has gone to 140. It was supposed to reduce the fuel prices from 180 to now it has moved actually from 180. It was supposed to come down. Actually, the fuel has gone to 195. So even if you are telling us that this is happening, and let me also go on to say that this money was ordered to a state corporation for UAE. Now we can't pay it. Renegotiation has to take place. In Molo last week, I'm sure we played that clip, I was here last week, where Imani Ichung'wah said the government collects 60 billion shillings a day. And that translates to 3 billion shillings a month. And that translates to 3.6 trillion a year. I think the question we should be asking now, for example, why can't we pay 70 billion shillings to UAE if we collect 60 billion a day? Are you seeing that there's something that is not adding up here? Yeah. And then the question here that Kenyans need to ask themselves is, where is our money going then? Because if I can tell you, if the taxes which we need to collect now, even in the budget, we are collecting 3.6 trillion, collecting taxes only without borrowing. The question we can even ask in the previous government.
You said we're collecting 3 point?
Because look at Imani Ichung'wah's number, 60 billion a day, 300
well, it should
billion
be that, but
a month.
Basically the collection is around 2 points.
No, but you see, Imani Ichung'wah is in government. He said last week we collect 60 billion a day.
Yeah,
what we're asking ourselves is that what is being told to us is not maybe the truth. And that's I'm also questioning even the previous government. That if this is true, what Imani Ichung'wah is saying, did we have to borrow even the way we borrowed?
Yeah.
Because we have to ask these questions. I'm asking, does Uhuru Kenyatta need to borrow what he borrowed? The current president has borrowed 1.2 trillion borrowing. Do we need to borrow if we can collect that much? Because apart from what we are seeing, for example, these foreign trips which are taking place, and this anti-mandamano demos where we are spending money on tear gas, where actually are we taking our money? So why, you ask me the question that, would I be in this government? No. Do you know why? Because I want to tell you, let me just example. If I was president, I would sit down with the media the way he does and explain to Kenyans in broad daylight, where is the 3.6 trillion he has collected? Because now 3 billion, 3 trillion, because if we are collecting 300 million per month, he has been in office for 10 months, so that is 3 trillion, added to 1.2 trillion, that is 4.2 trillion. He needs to sit down and explain to Kenyans. Either Imani Ichung'wah is lying, or If he's not lying, then where is this money going? Because you ask me why I should not be in this government. I cannot be in this government because this government has been treating us what is called, for example, she says they have been in office only for 10 months, isn't it? Over 10 months. If a child was born if a child was conceived, pregnancy was conceived on the day he was sworn in, that child could be 1 month old, isn't it? Now, we are talking about a baby who could be 1 month old. We are still saying there's nothing they can do. They're still rearranging the government and setting up. I'm sure even if someone falls pregnant, they're shopping for pre-child or baby showers being done. You can see a baby now having a bed where they are. You could see where there's stuff for a baby to shower.
It's dark before it's done, Professor.
We haven't seen all this. So Kenyans are being treated to what is called pregnancy without delivery, no baby. Cloud without rainfall, isn't it?
It's dark before it's done.
A penalty without a score.
Okay.
You understand?
Right.
Where ball possession without any delivery. So if I was president, I would sit down and explain. Then secondly, I would deliver. Because the reason why we're having the problem we're having, Linda, is that Raila Odinga with his mandamano is emerging because the president is not delivering. Hear what Kalonzo Musyoka said today. Shareholders, this cost of living is going up. Inflation is going up. Wrong move after wrong move. Linda, you cannot be having 50 tons. We know in his presidency there are 50 tons, and the first 20 tons are wrong tons. What are the chances we're going to make the right turn? That's why I'm trying to say anybody defending this government and anybody who wants to serve in this government, after this government has left office, there'll be so many questions to be asked. And as a scholar, if this government is ready to rectify themselves, then people like us can be attracted to work for this government.
So there's room for rectification away from the 1 million signatures that are being collected. So allow us to take a quick short break and then come back on that very beat and let us see whether we can agree that there's room for rectification if really there is need for the same. After the short break.
Here, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics. Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is a line. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa, hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori la historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutuku.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes, and I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Lover of farming? Well, Kilimo Diaries is your home for different farming ventures, crops, animals, and so much more. Every Sunday.
Well, in studio, Betty Adera, UDA woman leader, as well as governance and policy expert, Professor Fred Ogola, as we await for political historian Macharia Munene. Professor should be joining us shortly as well. But yes, we come back to the question as to whether the government can redeem itself. I don't know whether you acknowledging that there's some elements where they can be allowed to redeem themselves would be an acknowledgement that they fall short in as much as you speak highly of them, Betty.
So from the previous conversation, sounds like Professor does not obviously agree with this government. Sounds like he does not agree even with the previous one. So personally, I am looking at a scenario where anything government is just wrong, you know, in the eyes of my fellow panelists.
In fact, I fell short of asking him, so what should we do?
So what should we do?
But then luckily he says that they can redeem themselves.
You had your time. I'm speaking now.
At least he said that, well, there's room for, you know, redeeming themselves.
Yes. Yeah, and all these suggestions, where was he? You know, in the previous government, for example, during the handshake when the opposition principal, the handshake brothers came out and pleaded with the Kenyans that no, cost of living at that time was just as high, and the roads and Mandamano and streets was not the way to go. And the opposition leader is on record, saying that.
Yeah.
So is it only wrong when you are in the opposition? All right? Now, this government is wrong in their eyes. Why? They had a brilliant opportunity, 7th, or was it 8th of August last year, you know, to come in and do their magic, to show Kenyans how it is done. But with all that they had, the current president, you know, emerged victorious against all manner of odds, and he is legally in office. The same opposition went and petitioned the initial results, all right? And there was a whole process. Kenya came to a standstill. We're all watching that process, and it came to a conclusion. And the current regime was sworn in office. Same thing happened in 2017. Again, is it that if it is not you, then the person who comes in is bad? The previous president was actually very bad. You know, in their eyes, there was nothing he was doing. In 3 months, he has not done. Come on, we have to think about how to do things differently. We are not saying that there's nothing to be called out. We are not saying that everything is running smoothly, all right? But remember, this was an administration that got an almost empty treasury. The loans that he's talking about, who took them, all right? There were loans that have been taken, right? But there are also those that were in card. They were already committed. The country was committed from the previous regime, and a loan is a loan. When you come into office, you look at now reality, what you have on the table, go back to the drawing board, right? And figure out how to re-strategize things and put in place strategies that can work in the immediate, in the medium term, and also in the long term. I also just want to say that from what he's talking about, the numbers, Imani Ichung'wah and so on, if you go to the KRA site, all right, the number of people that they are quoting, almost 6 million, out of a population, of course, of almost 60 million, but not all 60 million are in the age category to work, you know, are actually doing their, the tax returns. That in itself is an indicator, you know, that we are running short. People are either just not filing or not paying their taxes, or then they are within that bracket, yes, but they don't have income, which is an issue that we need to talk about as Kenyans. In fact, Sabasaba Day, in my view, should have been an event where there is a contest of ideas on how to bridge the unemployment rates, you know, for young people, the cost of living, all these things, rather than turning our young people into, you know, acts of violence, riling them up, collecting signatures, which in my view is against, you know, the Data Protection Act, because they collected, they had planned to collect 1 million signatures during the BBI. They never even reached that 1 million, all right? Now they're talking about 10 million, and they never told Kenyans your name, your phone number, your ID number, your county, your county, your age, your gender, your actual signature. What did they do with that? We're here.
Betty, you are a proponent of the BBI. Can you confidently say you did not manage 1 million signatures? Because last time I checked, that moment then, you had even guaranteed us that you had managed 4 million signatures. So would we say that there was a lie therein, and now we have people who are part of this process that are coming out to confess that perhaps it was the act of the government and the lies therein?
We need to appreciate the fact that there is fact and there's also fiction. All right? Question here is that you're collecting signatures now. To what end? You collected signatures just about a year ago. To what end? All that data, people's identities that were collected in that process, what did they do with it? Where did that data go? Where is it sitting? What was its mission? And we are being treated to the same type of thing. Look, we are looking at a government that is really appreciating that even as the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, as at December last year, says there are about 2.97, almost 3 million young people out of jobs. Are these young people out of jobs just for the 8 months that Ruto has been in office? Or they have been out of job because of a process that has caused them to be out of job for a long time. And as we even count the 3 million, remember every year, additional young people get into that age bracket and also become, unemployment. So for me, the question around youth employment should be a national dialogue. Should be a national dialogue where we engage every stakeholder with sobriety, including participation of the young people themselves, in terms of, okay, white collar, they are not as many. They can only take you so far. But what else can you do? How can the government enable you so that at the end of the day, what do you want? To have some money in your pocket to function as a human being. And I'm telling you, the government, this one, Kenya Kwanza government, just within a short time already laid out that plan. The plans are ongoing and several others are yet to come. Now, we have been treated to media outbursts where elected members of parliament or nominated are out there, and especially from the opposition, telling young people, chukweni hiyo ni pesa yenu lakini musirudishe. Unaona? So what's your role really as an elected leader of this country?
The Hustler Fund, professor, yes, the Hustler Fund professor, has challenged this in court. Perhaps he should tell us how far it has gone. And equally, speaking to the collection of data, Betty is of the idea that this could be against the Data Protection Act. So then at this point, we ask ourselves, what does the Constitution speak to, perhaps, certain form of leadership, pushing for collection of signatures towards a certain, matter that they would love to see adjustments on. And the question then would be, how is it that the previous times there's been a process of collection of signature, including those ones that would speak to the question of the referendum and all that, how is it that they've not been against the Data Protection Act? And this one in particular is, there's quite an extensive report accorded to the media houses by the likes of James Orengo speaking to the collection of the 10 million signatures. And they say the government should ignore this at their own peril. What do you make of them?
Yeah, first of all, on the issue of Hustler Fund, like you asked, we went to court and challenged the Hustler Fund, and we talked about 27 violations to the Hustler Fund.
Right.
And these ones were, among them, the fact that it was operationally not formed well. It has a governance issue. There's no board. There's no management. There's no secretariat.
Right.
So who is reporting on these things? We ask questions. Where is the money sitting? Is the money sitting with the government? Where did the money come from? It was not appropriated by Parliament. And then we got an answer that it is a private fund. Actually, we are probing to go to court again next week. First, to sue KCB, because I'm a shareholder of KCB. If KCB money is coming from private firms like KCB to lend to Kenyans, I'm a shareholder because I feel violated if my money is being taken to where we have not approved. So there are serious violations. The court agreed with us to stop the board from taking oath of office, discharge their duties, getting allowances. Those same board members reached out to me telling me we need to agree. And I said, I cannot agree with anybody because somebody can offer you money to agree. But what is the sake of Kenyans? I don't want to collect money for the sake of Kenyans. I didn't go to court because I wanted to threaten them. Then when they give money, I go quiet. That case will go on and on and on. In fact, we're also going to court again to challenge the fact that they have put 10 billion shillings in the current budget for Hustler Fund, yet the first Hustler Fund failed. What do I mean by failure? Out of the 30 billion shillings which was wired to Kenyans to take in loans, there was 15% repayment, meaning that only 5 billion came back to Treasury. Where did we take 25 billion? How can a government spend 25 billion in wastage? Even if you say someone went and said they should not pay. This money was being borrowed. There was no research where the money was being invested in. People are just drinking alcohol with this and drinking. If a government invested 25 billion, I can tell you, Kilifi level referral hospital was concerned by 1.5 billion shillings. Do you know how many referral hospitals could we have if the government invested in setting up referral hospital than throwing out money in the name of Hustler Fund? And I told you that the Hustlernomics was never meant to work. It can't work. There's no framework. It was meant on a conjecture. What do you call a conjecture? Hypothesis that it can work. We elected this government based on hypothesis. Like I can ask you, if you look me, Linda, this will be honest. William Ruto was an MP. He was a minister for education. Can you remember one thing that he did that you can remember, like Michuki was Ministry of Transport and get somebody a belt? Tell me that one thing you remember him with in Ministry of Education. As far as I'm concerned, none.
The presidency does not have.
No, I'm asking track record because you must be elected on track record.
Right.
What did he deliver before? Kibaki was an economist. He was a minister for finance. You can imagine what they did in the Ministry of Finance. When he became president, he was able to understand how Treasury works and he turned around the economy. So we elected somebody who came with the propaganda, Hustlernomics, bottoms up. It is, I'm just trying to say, because I said the same point, that we elected these people based on a conjecture. Hustler Fund has never worked anywhere, that model. And I'm saying now we have wasted 30 billion shillings. Of course, we only got back to 5 billion. 25 billion was wasted, isn't it? Now we have launched another 10 billion shillings in this round that she's talking about. That is serious. Now, the second point you asked me about was the issue about signature. As far as I'm concerned, Kenyans are collecting with consent. In fact, the questions are very clear. There's nothing about anything out of the Data Protection Act. There's a data commission already. And the data commissioner has no issue with the signature collection. Even Operation Jogatuzi has collected. They ask you, are you willingly, isn't it? First, the question is, are you a registered voter in Kenya? Because you must be one. Secondly, are you willingly going to offer your signature to support this thing? Then you say yes. Actually, there's even technology to do that. Then actually you sign. So no one can violate you if you are signing. And in fact, people are uploading their IDs there. So I believe that there is nothing wrong with this. The question about this data, about this thing you should be asking about the issue of signal collection, where do they take them after this? We have the same question. Do you know that IBC has been destabilized strategically by the government? Because when Ruto became president, IBC commission were removed. There is no commission. Even as our 7.8 million signatures were collected, we were told by IBC they cannot receive them. I wrote a letter to them. I have a letter they wrote back to me,
as they do not
telling me that there's no commissioners, they cannot take the signatures.
Prof, hold it right there. And we're coming back to that, which is a very, very important matter to be discussed. But I do not want us to lose this line of thought. First of all, to acknowledge the presence of Professor Macharia Munene, a political historian and equally a professor of international relations. Perhaps he should be the best person to answer the questions you were asking me as to the track record of, the president or the current president, the previous presidents that we have had. And, he has the capability of giving us a historic perspective of not just just the country, but basically, you know, the global fraternity, even as you ask this question, is there a place where the bottom-up economy has worked at any point? Professor, thank you so much for creating time to be with us. You hear his arguments. I am sure you've also had a chance to hear the sentiments of Betty Adera. What do you make of the possibility of this government perhaps redeeming itself to a point where we can now say it will function for purposes of development for the people of Kenya?
Well, it has a chance, but a slim one. It's not doing very well.
Right.
The government is not doing well on many fronts. It could do better. And because it's not doing well, partly because its policymakers and people in charge sometimes appear to be confused. They don't seem to know what they are doing. And in that sense, then they disillusion the public. And so the anger we see, because there is anger in the country, is partly because it is self-inflicted by President Ruto and his team. They could do better than they are doing. So that way then you have a problem. The economy is going down the drain, partly because of bad policies. The morale is down. The prices are skyrocketing. Not to mention the taxes are also skyrocketing. Right. So the matching the expectations with the reality is not very encouraging to the country, and that's why you can say there is a lot of disillusionment. The president is trying very hard. Give him credit for trying very hard to appear to be a champion of things outside Kenya. The international agenda. He's working very hard to take credit for that. So his meetings with people like Macron, who seemingly arranged for him to have a rally in Paris, because how do you go into somebody's house and have a rally without him? So Macron must have arranged that. So you know, when Ruto was inaugurated, among the first people to talk to him the next day was Macron.
Macron, yeah.
So they've been having some,
right.
You know, so what we are seeing is not something that just cropped up. It's something that is very well orchestrated. And he's doing his best to sound as if he's a spokesman for Africa in a lot of things. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's quite in order. But all that effort is watered down by domestic challenges. Yeah, because things are not going well. And so when you go there saying things, they say, well, fix your home first. You have, he's made very interesting statements about Sudan. In fact, his minister, Kuria, went out of his own mind and way to say that you should invade Sudan. Kenya does not have a capacity to invade. And, you know, we just don't have that. And even if we had a capacity, it is very impolite to suggest such a thing. So, and then turn around and say he's going to settle or help resolve the Sudanese thing. Right. And then the Sudanese say, are you an old man? First of all, you insult us. We say you are going to invade. And then you say, so, you know, there is a disconnect between the desire to project a very positive international image and the reality on the ground that the supporting base is very weak. And so when you balance the two, if the supporting base, the domestic base is very weak, then the international base, that's hot air, you know, in that sense. So they need to match the two. And so far, the president is not doing very well matching the two. But the weather has been nice to him.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. 2 or 3 months ago, people were, you know, there was no rain.
Yeah.
You know, but since the rain started showing up, people are having a little maize to roast.
Right.
And the
prayers have worked.
The prayers might have worked.
Yes.
And now the potatoes are coming down in price.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of it. And the tomatoes so there is that kind of, I don't know, and it's the blessings from the upstairs. Because it is not the planning.
Right.
It is not the planning. It is
just happening and
just
the heavens are conspiring.
Except you can say that it was planning because people did plant in faith.
Right.
Although there was no rain, they still planted. And that was by faith that let's just plant in case. And the in case came. So that's why we have now the foodstuffs, not in the supermarkets. There is no change.
Nothing, okay.
There's no change. Unga is still up there. But you go to Githurai and other places where the farmers bring their things. There is a slight change.
And Betty Adera has alluded to that, and we appreciate that without doubt, and also the fact that even in the moment of dry moments, the president still maintained that there's hope. Can we go out there and plant, even though we have seen reports of drought again being reported again in Turkana, that perhaps I hope will be looked into. Professor says that there's a slim chance for the government to redeem itself. What are the possibilities of them seizing this slim chance?
Thank you very much, and good morning, Professor.
Morning.
Happy and honored to be in a panel with you. I would disagree that the chance is slim.
Slim.
What do you mean slim? How do you quantify slim?
Okay.
In a government that has 5 years to go, 4 more years to go, so to speak. One is a bit, like gone.
Right.
A government that is just has been put in place.
You're saying that the 10 million collection of signatures is exercise in futility?
Oh, that's complete exercise in futility, in my view. And no, let me finish.
Yes. Basically in that line, right? Yes.
in that line. An exercise in futility because you asked the question, like, so what? Professor had earlier explained, the so what? You collect and then they're blaming IBC. All right, IBC is Ruto cancelled IBC, blah, blah, blah. But remember, it is the side of the opposition that walked away from the talks, from the bipartisan talks, when agreement had been made that let's pause the process of reconstituting IBC. So it has stopped up to now, although that door and table is still open. But he's blaming IBC for this one. What about the millions of signatures that were collected under for BBI?
Yeah.
At that time, IBC was
not fully constituted.
Was fully.
It was fully.
Was.
They had already taken the Chireras.
Yes. It was fully.
At least they had a quorum.
They had a quorum.
Right.
And then the law we are talking about, the data protection policy and so on, came a little bit later, out of more or less the same cry at that time when people were finding themselves registered in political parties that they had not themselves, done so. But allow me to go back a little bit to what Professor, has said. We are not a country in isolation. Even you're not an individual in isolation. It matters who you associate with, your neighbors and so on. And such is what is called upon, by our head of state, because Kenya, as a sovereign state, does not exist in isolation. It exists within a global development and human security context. Now, back home, while the gods have been kind to us, I also want to categorically point out that the Kenya Kwanza government was deliberate at ensuring that perhaps this time we have a bigger bumper harvest, is it called, more harvest, so that people have their own maize, and wheat and beans and so on at home, rather than going to look for it in the supermarket. But even with the harvest itself, once it is complete, then there'll be too much maize in the country. And the law of demand and supply, we're a capitalist country. It will play itself out, and that particular price of unga, so to speak, is eminently going to come down. Deliberate efforts were, allow me to mention just two, and I had already alluded to the subsidy on fertilizer. The subsidy on fertilizer, Kenyans who are within the farming zones actually uptook that opportunity and made sure that they used it, and now we are looking at a bumper harvest. The other day I saw a whole documentary around it's called
Galana Kulalu.
Kulalu, that one. That scheme. And I looked at the pictures and I asked myself, wow, is this the one that we kept on hearing even the previous regimes having like pumped in billions and billions of Kenya shillings with nothing to show for it? In that scheme alone, and that is just one of them,
right.
There's going to be, it appears as if there's going to be a huge harvest of maize amongst, other products as well.
Of concern, Betty, though, is that what will it take the government to make sure that the farmers, again, do not, keep their produce for a later date, because they are fond of doing that. So they decide that they're not going to release their produce out to the market until then. It's time when, of course, the demand is higher, so that they can even sell it more expensively. So
the real farmers, the ones who farm, there's the domestic farming. You're just farming to have enough to eat, to push you between the seasons. All right, but then there are sections in this country where we are calling them the food basket, the maize basket. They plant like industrial scale type of maize planting. That's what we are talking about. And what I know is that the government in itself had promised, and we have to wait and see how the harvest behaved. Then put government to task and see, did you do or did you not do? They are going to buy, the maize, because the government also needs its own stock, of maize and cereals in general. In the cereals and produce board, to ensure that when you sell your maize or your wheat or your beans, to the government, you're compensated, the right way according to market rates. That motivates you to, do another cycle again. But what is key, Linda? We are a capitalist market. The market plays itself. When there is low demand, when there is high demand, prices behave like that, and that is really not in anybody's control.
Okay, all right. So fairly enough, we will have a chance for the government to, redeem itself. And it is not as slim as Professor would say. So here we are, and we're talking about the signatures, the 10 million signatures. Before I come to you and you tell us your story on what, IEP3 has done and so on and so forth, just how significant is this talk on, signatures? And Moses Wetangula reminds the Right Honorable Raila Odinga that during our times we tried to get 1 million. It was a hassle. What makes you think you're going to get 10 million? And why do we need 10 million to prove this point?
It's political hype. Nothing else.
Thank you for saying that.
The national is 1 million.
Why do we need 10, honestly?
But the people have claimed they have collected 1 million before. So I think that's why now, to be impressive, you put a high figure.
Right.
Even if you're not going to get there, just put a high figure for people to be debating about it. The collection of signatures is good, because it's a democratic right for people to say they're collecting signatures. What happens after that is another matter. And the pushed very hard. All they are talking about is a revolution, nothing else. So
are we ripe for one as a people?
No.
We're not?
No. But the signs of it are not fire.
Okay.
And then you never know what happens with the revolutions. They have their own momentum, sometimes can be very destructive.
Right.
If you look at what happened in Sudan, there's some agitators and then once Bashir was out, they didn't know what to do. They got messed up.
And it was about bread, actually.
So the military came and said, okay, we are saving you now from yourself. And then, so you never know what happens.
Yeah.
For one, the claim that the objective is to remove Ruto from the State House in itself is kind of far-fetched. And idea, there are procedures for removing a president, and collecting signatures is not one of them. Okay, so you have either the impeachment process, which is very clear, or the medical process, which is also very clear. In case he goes gaga, incapacitated.
Right.
There are ways of saying the president is not himself; is no longer capable. Now, short of those two, the others are wishful thinking.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with people exercising their wishful thinking. It's good. It's letting off the steam,
right.
And then they can move on. So we see it as a political exercise.
Yeah.
To give people opportunity to let steam out and then move on.
Right.
And then eventually, along the way, they will cut a deal. Raila and Ruto will cut a deal along the way, somewhere.
Yeah, without doubt.
The signs are there.
Okay, interesting, interesting.
But, you know, how they'll call it is another matter. Because we've had something called handshake.
The bipartisan was almost
the bipartisan was
that direction.
It was a way of diffusing attention.
Yeah, yeah.
And so Ruto says, okay, you are saying what? Okay, let's have a committee to talk. So, and Raila's team said, okay, let's have a committee, thinking they are going to control the committee, which did not work. So they bolted out of the thing they had agreed to get in, because they did not go their way, you know.
Yeah.
But if I may just chip in a little bit, I think this whole IEBC thing is the discussions they're having is a waste of time. Okay? All you should do is very simple.
Yeah.
Ruto and Raila have some tea or meeting. Bring so many people, I bring so many people. How you organize them?
Professor, are we heeding pressure because of an individual? Are we heeding to that pressure of an individual, really? Is it about the right Honorable Raila Odinga?
Yes.
When we know very well it is, yeah?
It is.
Why do you argue so?
It is.
Okay.
In the last few decades,
Right.
Raila has been the de facto determinant of politics.
In the country.
Whether he gets his way or not is another matter.
Okay.
But he still is the determinant. He officially lost the election last year. He got, 6.9 million votes. And
200 shy of...
Yeah, and then Ruto got 7 point something.
0.1.
Yes, 200. That was very narrow, that's true. And so there have been a lot of discussion, why did he lose? Rather than why did Ruto win?
Okay.
And Fred here can tell you some of the reasons. Some people thought they had already won, so they did not go to vote because they had won.
And that is quite common in the country, yeah?
So only that they forgot to go and vote. Because if some people had voted in some areas, 300,000 votes would have tilted the other way.
Yeah.
So there was that. We were told by some of the people, like I think Kioni is the one who told us, that he did not have agents. We should have. You know, so whatever the argument say, Raila lost that election. End of the story. Okay? He refuses to accept that he lost.
He's lost.
But that's not the first time he has done that. It's a routine. And in refusing to accept the results, he cuts a deal. And he gets something for him and his family and everybody else. And then once he gets what he needs or wants, others are left complaining, how come you are not part of it?
Is it not for the same reason that then this government should at least perhaps give us a change on that? And they have been adamant on the fact that they're not going to accord him a handshake.
No, we don't call it a handshake because that's an insult.
There's going to be a difference.
They'll cut a deal somewhere. Even the idea of having a bipartisan talk, that was a deal.
That really did not...
Yeah, it just did not go the way some people wanted. When the president said, okay, I've listened, can we have a talk? That's a deal, And we are going to talk about how to cut a deal on this thing. Only that they both sides kept on changing the rules. That's what it is. But eventually, the de facto determinant of Kenyan politics
is the right
for the last 20 or so years is Raila.
And so his needs have to be looked into.
So his needs, it needs to be looked into. How they are looked into is another matter.
But where is the electorate in all this? Because that's where then the question of the IEBC comes in.
Yeah.
We would have expected that, we have perhaps, or we are in the process of getting commissioners.
Yeah.
We had begun that process by having a select committee.
Yeah.
This was challenged by the Azimio team. And even right now, when the bipartisan talks are not working well, they maintain that they're not going to allow, say, President William Ruto to pick the commissioners by himself based on what it is that they say. Where does it leave the electorate who is in somewhere where their member of parliament lost their life, you know, and they need to have a representative where members of county assemblies are not there, where the likes of Fred are presenting signatures, you know, at the space of the IBC, which is provided for in the Constitution, and they're not able to be accorded that right to see it proceed to the next level.
Linda, I remember that when I had a discussion with you in one of the books I wrote, which I gave you.
Yes.
And I said that there's 11 parameters determine the independence of IEBC. And I said that there are several institutions which begin without independent, and they are not. So allow me first of all to talk about the issue on how infiltration of independent institutions has taken place in Kenya. If you look at the fact that IEBC should be independent, why should politicians have a say on it? Whether it is opposition, whether it's government, why are they not independent even to set up themselves and move?
Okay.
Why should Raila say you cannot continue? Why should William Ruto say how they should continue? It tells you that IEBC is not independent. And we have a lot of infiltration of public institutions because of the same thing. Look at the same thing about IPOA. IPOA should be looking at how the police service can be a police service, not a police force. On Maandamano Day, on Sabasaba Day, we had a police force, we never had a police service. Because the police service should look at how to protect every Kenyan, whether you are in opposition or not. But we're looking at a situation whereby they are giving instructions on how to act. Look at the next day when William Mutunga was being arrested at the Central Police Station. The same thing. The policemen were not after. These guys were disarmed. They were actually singing religious songs. Then they are tear-gassed. How do you tear-gas someone singing religious songs? If actually you are a police service? You should either join them or tell them, lower your voice is too loud or something, but not tear-gassing them. So we're looking at institutions being infiltrated. But also let me tell you something very interesting. I'm sure you may not want to hear about Strathmore here, but at the same time, you saw a situation whereby somebody says I will dismiss in Strathmore by my comments against Strathmore, because I get comments not against Strathmore, but against the sitting government. Why should Strathmore even react to that? Where do they come in? If they are independent, if there's something I did wrong in Strathmore, they should tackle me from there. Why not how I talk here? And last week there was a serious case again. Let me just explain. A serious case about after being fired from Strathmore, Strathmore infiltrated my cyber access to a certain course, and they, sorry to say, this is a fact.
And you know, Professor, that has to be substantiated by facts, and equally actually, you have someone from that to as well speak to it.
Yes, there's substance about it. When they did that, a journalist who made students who were complaining came to interview me. They went to interview Commission for University Education. They interviewed Strathmore. Then they said they cannot publish that story because first, they're afraid Strathmore can sue them. Secondly, they are afraid that they are having what's called advertisement budget from Strathmore.
And you know, I'd love Professor to speak to this because he also is a lecturer.
Yes, this is open. Yes. This is open. Actually, what's happening is the journalists came and got the evidence from me. They went to Kwe, and Kwe said they didn't receive the letter which I wrote, isn't it? And the letter from the VC of Strathmore writing to me on the same matter. All evidence. They are trying to say that, I'm just giving an example. If a private institution cannot be independent, how can we expect any institution to be independent? That's why I talk about infiltration taking place. So the issue of signatures, there's nothing wrong with collecting signatures. By the way, let me just say that in spite of the fact that a professor says that the signature can go nowhere, the path is this. There's what he called the law of the doctrine of necessity. So if there's no IBC, Raila Odinga can go to High Court and ask High Court, I want to submit signatures, and there's no IBC. What do we do? Because no, rights cannot be suspended. They cannot be postponed. Rights which are delayed, justice delayed, justice denied. So High Court can give a directive by saying, let us set up a small commission to do this, or let us set up anything. If that also fails, in the Article 1 of the Constitution says that the electorate, if you ask me where they come in, the Kenyan citizens have a right as a sovereign state, their sovereignty is delegated to these elected officials. If they can't do it, even you can use what you call assemblies, people's assemblies, to come with the way citizens can actually be able to do their right, because you can't tell us the fact they're elected, you cannot do anything. But the challenge we have is that those legal provisions in the constitutions did not have proper legislation on how they can be operationalized. So Raila Odinga will be facing that challenge. But the law gives him a provision that he can use the People's Assembly to do it. But the question is, legislation was supposed to pass in Parliament to do that. So we blame him for the fact that since the Constitution was put in force during the Nusumkati government, he could have taken time with his members of Parliament, because actually he had majority in Parliament, to legislate those things so that when time comes, they can become useful to him. But unfortunately, they were not. And maybe that time he thought, because I have majority in Parliament, I will go on to win the 2007 election, isn't it? And after that, actually 2013 election, then after that, I don't need anything against me, because the thing I hope happen in government that when you're in government, everything is okay to you. When you're outside, then they start looking very unokay to you. And the analogy here is, Linda, if you're inside a matatu, I'm sure you've ever been inside a matatu. I've also been inside severally. When a matatu overlapping so that you can reach where you are going, you feel very good about it, isn't it? But the people outside the matatu are so annoyed with these mannerless things you are doing. So the people inside the matatu, which is government, can do anything, isn't it? That those outside the matatu will always feel something very strange about what is happening. So those are very serious challenges that we are facing as a country. And I'm sure, and I said here before, there is no politician who wants a free and fair election. And there is no politicians who wants institutions to be accountable when they're running for office.
Interesting.
Including Raila Odinga himself. And in fact, Linda, if you vie for any position yourself, they start by saying, how can I steal the election? Before saying, how can I win the election? If you find how you can steal the election, it is now easy for you to run for election. If you run for an election, can you imagine you spend, for example, an MP, 160 million shillings?
Right.
How can you begin if you want a free and fair process? You want to begin by knowing already have an upper hand, so whatever I'm doing is just for the sake of it. And we have made election become too expensive that no one goes there to win really, because you must spend so much money. The campaign for Kenya Kwanza, ask her how much they spent. It was predicted that any candidate winning the presidency will spend minimum 50 billion shillings. Now, how do you spend 50 billion shillings and you want a free and fair process? You spend 50 billion shillings if you know you have a way on which you can manipulate the system and win. And I'm sure if you saw even the finance bill, or sort of acknowledge that they said the finance bill, that to pay Azimio MPs to ensure it is passed.
He later.
No, whatever it is, what I'm trying to say, the fact that he says it, and he said it in a public rally, means his fan actually cheered him up saying it. Meaning that everybody knows. Linda, I was in Uganda running for member of parliament. I was told that if you have not known how you're going to get the ticket, don't even run. Which means you should know how you'll take a ticket from somebody through ways, for example, going to visit Raila in Karen, or going to visit Ruto in Karen, the same thing, and finding that Ruto will give a ticket. So for you are campaigning here, but the ticket's under your mattress. So there's no politician, I can tell you, anyone who goes for an election seeing it aqua free and fair, unless you have been guaranteed how it will be free and fair. And no one will guarantee you. In fact, politicians say the leadership is not given, it is taken. They say
but now, Professor, what are we telling the people of Kenya who are, have some element of hopelessness today? First of all, because of the tough economic times. And now we're also talking about these processes that are supposed to accord as leaders to be processes that are flouted from the onset. And we are constantly, blaming the IEBC for it. Yet at this very early stage, we acknowledge that we have a problem. If Professor is going to say that basically everything has to run in the best way that will serve the interest of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, then Professor Fred comes in to say that, well, we all understand that these processes should be flouted anyway for us to get a leader. What are we telling Kenyans?
No, it should be. They are normally flouted. And I told you,
we perhaps seem to be comfortable
why I
with
wrote
that.
the book, I was telling people
Strategic
11 things that must keep these institutions independent. And without that, it starts from there. People are blaming IBC, but they were never given independence. Let me tell you now, in March, we should be having deliberation of boundaries in Kenya, in March next year. IBC is not in place. Are they doing it? It will happen too late. Laws will be passed too late to do anything right. And sometimes it's by design so that you can take advantage of the system and win election.
Betty.
Well, Professor has said very many things, and first and foremost, I can only sympathize with your Strathmore situation. And hope that eventually there's a clear conclusion, you know, on it. But back to some issues, and again, for me, here's what I say. The Kenya Kwanza government is a government that upholds the Constitution and the rule of law. Now, to constitute or reconstitute IEBC, there's a clear procedure on how it needs to be done. All right? So issues of state capture, as alluded by Professor on government institutions, to me, that is a question that is neither here nor there. And the president, in his wisdom, and following timetable, really, set the process rolling for reconstituting IEBC. Opposition came and said, hey, whoa, halt. In their view, it was not going to be done in a fair way, in a credible way, and all that. And the president listened. And as Professor is saying, what then happened was, okay, then let's pause it. Let's pause the process. Let's go to a table. Bring your team, I bring my team, and then let that team, combined team, chambua this thing and come to us with some recommendations. That process has not moved far. To my view, the last meeting, it is the opposition side that absconded. They're an abscondee opposition. They never showed up for those conversations, and it is still hanging there. And Linda, you raise a serious issue in terms of there are some wards and constituencies that are now ripe for by-election, following like passing of a sitting elected member. That cannot happen. And when that is being delayed, then it means the rights of Kenyans in that ward or in that particular constituency then is being infringed, because then they do not have representation at the whatever county assembly or even in the National Assembly. So we are stuck. We are in a quagmire and asking very many questions. But before we really even look at this speck in the eye of government and forget the log in your own eye, when they're saying that they want, one of the demands is that fungueni server. Fair enough. But who is this kufungua server? Server belongs to which institution? Constitutionally. That's IEBC.
They don't even know what the server is.
It's not the president. The president doesn't have server in his phone or anything. But even before you do that, can ODM in itself fungua its own server for its own by-elections? I think then we might be treated to a lot of drama when it comes to when it comes to that. Lastly, Professor mentioned something about the violence meted by the police and so on. Yes, we agree, and the police are duly instructed that you're not allowed to use like live bullets. All right, and the instances where those happened, of course, are under investigation, and that I can affirm. But wait a minute, the same Bill of Rights that give Kenyans the right actually to gather, to picket, to assembly, to talk about whatever it is they want, the same right bears the burden of responsibility on the same Kenyan, that as you're exercising this, your right, you should also not infringe on the right of somebody else. We saw on your media, Linda, Thika Road, for example. Let's just look at that. There was no police. Rioters were actually stoning cars, stoning any car, matatu, the public, the private cars, and they were just being stoned until people in matatus are confused, wondering, okay, so mimi nimekosa nini, because a stone has hit me in a matatu and I'm just going about my own business. When that your freedom is making a woman to fear kufungua kioski yake because of fear of being looted and so on, that is infringing in somebody else's right. When in the name of maandamano, you come in and even before police shows up, you have already put stones on the road and blocked a public road. Umeshaleta tires and they're burning on the same tarmac that was built by your own taxes. You're spoiling your own thing, actually. So where does this law, what are the boundaries here? So if police come in to one, clear the way so that other people who have got nothing to do with your issue can go about their daily lives. Where is the problem? So for me, here is what I'd want to say and really appeal, to the opposition side. The door and the table of bipartisan conversations is still open. And once that door is open, you can talk whatever it is that needs to be talked about. Secondly, can we rally conversation around how to make better lives of our unemployed youth who have been employed ever since? They've not just been employed because Ruto came to power. They have been, youth unemployment is actually a global issue. All right? Economy is a global issue. How better can we mitigate, and cushion our own Kenyans?
Very own.
So when other Kenyans are in the farm, wanalima, they're preparing the rains, thanks to God, Aria, the fertilizer, is here.
Right.
Then you hear leaders, from opposition telling their own people, don't take it. Musiende, musichukue. But remember, somebody somewhere else is chukwari. And they're going to harvest. So at the end of the day, who is leading the country and who is misleading the country? Let us focus on leading this country from whatever point you are in. Let us focus on educating, our people and Kenyans. And we have a listening administration. If you have a better idea, bring it on the table. Let's look at it. Let's talk about it. And as Professor said, the slim chance. I disagree with the slim part, but there is room, really. I mean, we're just almost a year into government. We have 3 more before we get into another cycle of preparing for the next election. 3 years is a lot of time.
3 years would be a lot of time, only if, there's some aspect of peace. And perhaps that's when, you would say give credit to Uhuru, because he managed to tame what could have been, a nightmare for his government. On Wednesday, we're looking for, I don't know whether we're looking forward or we are staring at, another call of demos. And we ask ourselves, just how much will these demos achieve? When you're looking at that, an acknowledgement by the interior boss that, well, sometimes the police go overboard and this should be investigated. But equally an acknowledgement that, it's within ourselves to make sure that we protect the rights of other Kenyans. Gets us a little bit confused. And Barry, member of parliament, Ruku presents a bill in parliament that perhaps would help tone down the activities. If not toned down, then, let us have some level of managing the protests that we conduct. Are we saying that these have not been managed in the right way?
Yeah, that's what you're saying. They've not been managed
in the right way. And what are the possibilities that the bill represents? We will not, surpass the levels that, we speak of on making sure that at least people are allowed to picket.
No, it is an attitude problem.
Yeah. Okay.
And it goes down to 1 or 2 people. A man called Raila. Because what he thinks and wants is what happens. Right. He has managed to make Ruto look very weak. That's his mission. Make Ruto look what? Weak. And if he makes him look weak, then Ruto is not capable of running the country. And if he's not capable of running the country, he should get out. That's his objective.
Right.
So that he has said not once, but many times, I want to go to the State House. How he goes there is another matter. So the attitude is the issue. And then the people who then join in that they do not think of the responsibility aspect as you talk about the rights, which is true. But rights always go together with the responsibility. If you have an impression that no one should be responsible, whether on this side or that side, then you have chaos. Because the assumption is that the ones who believe they should not be responsible actually think that they have a right not to be responsible. And which means violating the rights of the others, to be that. The demonstrations have not been very peaceful. That's a fact. It is also true that people do have had peaceful demonstrations. They have had. But somewhere something goes wrong, and it's known. as a matter of fact. So the issue is how to convince the demonstrators not to block other people. There is a story, a small story once, and some time ago, the Matatus had decided to strike. And one provincial police commissioner decided to have a discussion with Matatus. Somebody I know. So he called the Matatu leaders and said, you people want to strike? Yes, we want to strike. Good. I don't want chaos. Okay, good. So if you want to strike, you strike. But don't stop somebody else from doing what? Driving his Matatu.
Yeah.
If you do that, then I'll come in. Now, do you want me to come in? No. Okay, no. So you go and strike, but don't disturb it. And that place had a lot of peace because there were no Matatus anywhere. And of course, the others, Matatu owners, were also understanding. You don't break the understanding. Right. So the place was peaceful. In other places, there was what? Chaos. So there you can see a sense of responsibility there, how to manage crises or problems. We have not been managing these things very well. And so the government looks very weak in that sense. And how does it come out of it? Is another matter. It's not by chest thumping. But there are better ways of dealing with issues than they have. Let me also talk about something about the
Prof, allow us to take a quick short break and then come back on that very note, because we also want to understand. If you look at some of these laws within the bill, then you ask yourself, there's quite a thin line as to managing and as well infringing what would be the right of those ones that are allowed to protest by the Constitution. So we take a short break and then we come back on that note.
Here, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics. Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is alive. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori la historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutuku.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's, after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes. And I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at...
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. In studio, there is Mheshimiwa Betty Adera, as well as Professor Macharia Munene and Professor Fred Ogola. Prof, we come back to you. There's something else you wanted to say also, as we say, a while. It will be important for us to manage the situation, but just how best can we manage without now, you know, surpassing the levels that we speak of, in line with making sure that it's a right that is allowed?
We need better thinking than we are having. And that's where the issue of policy, grand strategies and all those things come into the picture. When Kriegler conducted his investigation about the 207 mess, because it was a mess, concocted mess, he pointed out and said, get your institutions in place at the right time before the time. Eh? Otherwise, you're going to be having what? This issue of the IBC is an unnecessary problem because it should have been sorted out long before, the election.
Yeah.
Because Chebukati, it was clear he was leaving at a certain time. And about whoever. There was no good reason at all why the machinery for replacing those 3 commissioners could not have been started long before.
Right.
Why wait until does not make sense. So somebody is not thinking properly. Then before that, we had these other 4 commissioners who are missing because 4 had resigned or whatever it is.
Right.
Why wait for a whole year or so?
To get the Cherera.
To get, well, they don't want to call them Cherera or anything, but to fill the positions.
Right.
It made no sense at all. But that's where you have strange politics going on among the policymakers, because that's a policy decision. Eh?
Right.
Somebody somewhere decides to sit back and wait for the opportunity.
So it's deliberate.
It's deliberate. I mean, it's not an accident. I mean, to be fair to say it's an accident. So the failure has been on the part of those in responsible positions because they have been irresponsible.
Right.
And so we are now having this mess because some people were irresponsible and yet we trust them. So the question of now money, we need more sense of responsibility among our policymakers, which then begs the question, and who are these policymakers? Do they have the capacity to be responsible? There are people who don't have the capacity to be responsible, even if they wanted to. So what do we do to ensure that we are not caught in this kind of mess again?
Yeah.
What do we do about the attitude of the untouchables? There are people who are untouchable in this country. Although we keep, no one is above the law, that's not true.
The right Honorable Raila Odinga is, well, he's reminded by Malala that he's not.
And that's
factually
talk.
Speaking, according to the
No, that's talk. The reality
Can you
is,
arrest him?
the reality is
Can
that...
you not?
No, the reality is he's above the law.
That is a reality that
That's
we
the
have
reality.
to live with, you
the
think?
theory is he is not.
Professor.
So otherwise, why does he keep on getting away with things? Something, if you tried, you've been in trouble.
Miguna should be able to tell us this story
You've been in a lot of
better.
trouble, but he can do it and get away with it. So he's above the law.
Yeah.
And because he's above the law in practice, he makes the government look very weak, extremely weak. Because somebody can do anything and get away with it. So how do we change that? And unfortunately, maybe we do export bad manners. Because it looks as if Donald Trump is a good student of Kenya. Because he repeated some things. He lost an election fairly. He said, no, I did it. Why? Because I don't trust the IBC of America.
Right.
something like that. So there is an attitude thing that the whole country needs to rethink and not to be so reliant on 1 or 2 people. And if that happens, then we might be going somewhere. As for Fred's and his problem in Strathmore, I think he has said very serious things here.
Right.
I think you should give Strathmore a chance.
A chance to as well speak to it. I agree.
To respond.
For purposes of...
because those are heavy statements.
Heavy statements, and in fact, that's why I say he should substantiate that. He says they're substantiated.
He has his evidence.
But he hasn't,
But the fair thing is to give Strathmore a chance.
A chance to as well speak to it.
To respond appropriately. So that this thing is not left hanging.
Right, that's
and
true.
It's very unfortunate for what happened to Fred. But in terms of, I think we need that. So that if Fred wants to respond to the response, that's another matter. Right. But I think that should be that. So overall, I think the country is not as hopeless as it appears. Although I've said here, it's not that. We are better than we should be.
Okay.
And the hope is always there, because it is that hope that keeps us going. Whatever happens, the Ruto government is messing up in a lot of things, but that does not mean the end of Kenya. So it can be corrected, it can be improved, and then people might have a better idea.
On what next? Should I say that today is a D-Day for us to get to know where we are headed with the Finance Act 2023?
No.
Professor?
No,
not just the D-Day as yet.
No, today is the day about IPRA, but I saw the list of cases, including mine. The hearing has not begun.
Right.
There are mentions and mentions. Even mine is a mention. The hearing has not begun. Actually, it will take some time.
Right.
The only disadvantage is that we know that the Finance Act now should begin working from 15th.
Yeah.
So there's 15 days. I don't know how they're going to deal with that situation. But it's an unfair situation because of the fact that you see how the government does the budget. The government comes with the budget, then discovering they can't collect that money within that situation, they have to come with a finance bill. And you see, realize, but by 15th, if they are not going to go ahead either to implement the Finance Act or not, it will become an issue. But today is not a big deal. Now, just to wade into the whole discussion here, let me tell Betty that we are not here to ensure the government fails. And let me tell you what, we want this government to succeed.
Right.
Even if someone is waiting for 2027, we can only wait if we're eating, if people are going to hospital, if the country is functional. And I can tell you, Linda, the biggest role of government, I'm an economist, and quoting the words of Douglas North, who is a Nobel Prize winner of economics, says that a government was never meant to be efficient. A government was never born in efficiency. The government is meant to be functional. A government should ensure that the country functions. So, for example, on Maandamano Day, that whatever you are doing, the proper functioning of the state continues. And that's why there's a dilemma as you ask there. What is the difference between actually infringing and also just reinforcing to ensure everything happens? So I think what we need as a country is we need some education around it. And I saw the director for Kenya National Human Rights Commission, Malombe, saying, we need, first of all, to see whether the tear gas we're having are healthy, because there are some tear gas which can be imported, which are not good quality. But actually the main discussion here, that's not the main discussion, is that if we know there will be more Maandamano in this country, are Kenyans properly educated? Civic education is key on what is Maandamano. Why should we go for Maandamano? It's happening like emotional reaction, and that's why sometimes it's difficult for you to predict how emotions will play. Then the policeman discovers, now is this too much, then things start moving. So our policemen, is there a curriculum where we are talking about how to guard Maandamano? If Ruto knows that there will be more Maandamano in his government, why doesn't he take the policemen and the security officers through some course on how to handle it? And I looked at the situation when I was watching the clips. Do you know how the city is structured, the city planning and urban policy? Do you know that people can be on top of the roof and throwing tear gas, the police downside? I could see people on top of roofs throwing stones to policemen downwards. It is so unstructured that the chaos is too much that anything can happen to anybody. We can lose so much life. So,
did you see the policemen running away?
Yeah, interestingly.
So, in the streets, for example, if you go to the streets of Barcelona, there are rules, for example, that you cannot climb a building. You understand? But here, somebody can climb a building, and there are some gangs on top of the building throwing stones at the policeman. How can you be a policeman trying to guard the street, trying to look at who is throwing a stone up there? It is so chaotic. The Public Order Act, which explains how you should do demonstrations, needs to be amended much more, to be enforced much more, and I think we need a lot of civic education. And I would like to say something very interesting here, that if you look at how the Kwanza government is running government, if you ask me, if I was president today, the most important thing we are lacking is delivery. If the president focuses on delivery, maybe just keep quiet for one, like two things which are key. The communication strategy for the government is not very clear. The same thing like opposition, but the government is more critical because you are the people in charge of the country. How communication is happening, for example, you see Eli Dowalo, how he talks. You hear, for example, Moses Kuria. The way they are communicating, they are presenting more hopelessness than hope. And then secondly, the issue of delivery. When you promise this, please just do. And in fact, that's why Raila is becoming more strong, because he says, you said this, it's not happening. And now people are realizing that he's their savior. Why is Raila becoming a savior when Raila lost the election? You ask yourself. And I discussed something like you asked what Raila is not above the law. What Raila has is social license to operate. Raila owns the street. Ruto owns State House. Ruto has instruments of power. Raila has been given by the people. So Raila Odinga is the only person who can call a demonstration in town and it happens. I'm sure he can call one in Gatundu and Uhuru can succeed in one. If Uhuru call for demonstration in Gatundu, it might not happen. So the social license here is Raila, people thinking Raila is their fighter. It's becoming more relevant only because of delivery. If finance bill was done to look for people, Raila will have no say. The other thing of bipartisan. Bipartisan has failed. And my point is now, Raila Odinga may not actually be looking forward to remove Ruto from government now using the 10 million signatures, I can tell you. Raila Odinga wants to create a constitutional moment. I don't know what he thinks, but that's my thinking. He wants to create a constitutional moment whereby people go back to Bomas and start looking for how can we address the teething and fundamental issues in the country. But if he tries to go through bipartisan, it cannot work. Actually, I have heard from some people within government that the bipartisan is not continuing and they are not interested in it. Both sides are not interested because the end game for it is not there for each of them. He's looking for a moment on when people can go, but by pushing the signatures, he's putting pressure on the government to look for that moment where people can go and address addressing the deep-seating issues in the government.
So this, again, will be change of constitution as well.
Because it's operationally difficult to move from office.
Okay, so yes, we are expecting to hear the High Court as well. Hear the case as filed by Senator Okiya Omtata and also Prof here. So, of course, the question is on the challenging of the Implementation Act. The conservatory orders stand as to, the extension of the same, and that this cannot be, implemented at this very stage. What does it do to the government as it stands? And, that was for 5 days. Perhaps we're going to expect an extension or something?
I think most likely those are the issues, because I think Okiya Omtata is going to ask in court, even asked, so what do we do? IPRA has started implementing, what do we do? So there could be an issue of the court pronouncing themselves by saying IPRA did a mistake by implementing it, but there's a loophole because IPRA didn't quote the bill, they just increased the fuel. People are just thinking they did, but they didn't quote it. So sometimes they can say there's a lacuna there and they can get away with it, but the issue here, the judges can either postpone, is in their right to do so, or at least make a pronouncement. But the problem is, according to the Constitution, the Finance Act should be operational from 15th so that we can collect the taxes required to finance the budget. So that's
if they did not quote the budget, I'm not getting this right, and allow me to engage him some more. If they are not quoting the Act, but then again, this was capped at 8%, and they have surpassed that, what exactly are we saying?
I mean, the thing is that they did not say that the fuel has moved from that price
in relation
to 195 in relation to the 16% VAT. It's not clear. They didn't say that. So they say, I'm going to realize that the court will be asking IPRA to explain how they have reached that price. You understand? And that's where the issue will come in.
Fair enough, fair enough. So here we are, Betty, we're almost closing and we're looking forward to hear what the courts will pronounce this day. But it's equally very important for us to acknowledge that in all this, the activities of the government are being staggered. What to do to make sure that, well, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, the Azimio team is tamed. What to do to make sure that all these court battles do not, bar the government from, achieving its desires, its dreams, or what it is that it envisions for the people of Kenya.
We've come of age as a country where any Kenyan is free to exercise their legal rights.
Right.
And the courts are public, institution. That's another arm of government, and they're there to do their job. So if a case is brought before them, they have to deal with it. They have to hear it. They have to dispense of it. Now, this particular one is unique because it is also coming at a time when a new budget for this fiscal year was just read, the other day, and this was the maiden budget for this administration. And yes, when the court is halting it, it just means that what? Now the budget cannot be implemented, taxes cannot be, collected because it's collected on the basis of, a finance bill that went through due process, really, in the House, and we saw it, and it was already approved into law, but now it's in the court. So here's just what's going to happen. One, civil servant salaries might not be paid on time, all right? The planned recruitment of teachers, 20,000, was it 30,000 by TSC, might be halted.
And the report today speaks of the fact that there's that gap, huge gap.
There's a huge gap of teachers that now TSC, Ministry of Education is trying to bridge and mitigate. So even if they have all these people lined up to be absorbed into this teaching service, they may delay in actually commissioning them, because then at the end of the month you need to pay a teacher his or her salary because they have worked. And several other things that directly impact critical services, including health, education, and other social services that affect Kenyans. All right? So that is on one hand. On the other hand, we're also having an opposition that is more or less double-barreled, because now they are confused. We don't know what exactly they want, because you're saying the government is not performing. This is the first budget that the government wants to implement to their own name since they came to power. But now there's a court process that is stopping them from doing that. So it is like a two-pronged issue, double-edged sword, if you like, that is probably not helping anybody. But for me, I'd really call upon the judiciary to prioritize this matter, to expedite its resolution, so that then it is clear for all Kenyans, the way forward. But lastly, really on the other issue still eating me here on institutions. I recall the same IBC. There's a time, we've come a long way from the Mulolongo, system to what we have now. There was a time, and especially the 2007-2008 situation, a lot of that was blamed on manual, registration and voting and so on. So as a progressive country, and the leadership at that time, we embraced, digitalization of the IBC, processes. Again, thanks to the opposition leader. Right now, the digital is still a problem. It's still a problem. When you look at even the last election and even the 2017 one, the digital aspect was still a problem. So I'm not exactly sure what exactly we want and how we want to educate our people. But I agree with my fellow panelists that one, we need to figure ways forward. We need to mitigate, impact of the cost of living, especially for Kenyans. We need to educate our people on government services and opportunities that are there. And we also need to take into consideration the critical elements that concerns public participation, so that we hear the thoughts of and suggestions of Kenyans and figure out ways in which those can also be mainstreamed into day-to-day, running of government and provision of services.
Well put, Professor, as we close it, what will it take the government to, maximize on this slim chance? Because after all, there are forces that are staggering it.
Yeah, well, it needs better PR. It has lousy PR.
Yeah.
Because... yes, it tries to do
spin masters as well.
Yeah, they need some better explanations. Right. The impression of double talk is there. So we are told there is no money, and then we see some expenditures that are mind-boggling.
Okay.
And people say, "You say there is no money. What happened? What is this?" Okay. So the double talk needs to be the impression that they are the company mentality. It needs to go.
The shareholders.
The shareholders.
Okay.
It needs to go, because Kenya is not anybody's company. It's everybody's share. I mean, we are all stakeholders in this country. So to be told that some people don't belong and a few others do is terrible. It erodes the credibility of the government by giving impression that it is not for all. It's something else that has been talked about. The freedom of the MPs to be free. They appear to have problems being free. Either from whether in the other side or this side. Before the finance bill, what did we see? We saw leaders, Ruto and Raila, warning.
Their very own.
They're warning the MPs, don't you dare. Say, wait a minute, these people are supposed to be free to decide what is in the best interest of the country.
Yeah.
So when you threaten them that if you vote this way, then you should, you are going to see dust. That's an erosion of democracy. Now, were they bribed? As some people, there have been rumors that they like visiting toilets and get envelopes.
It becomes difficult to establish.
They understand.
Yeah.
Then they would. Now, if that takes place, it is sad that it takes place. But I think it is worse than that to tell an MP that he or she cannot exercise conscience and vote the right way as per that conscience. Because it is not necessary that an MP agrees with the government.
Yeah.
No.
Much as they align.
It's the conscience that should be counting. Yeah. It's not necessary that an MP agrees with the opposition. No. Because there are some issues where, of course, party for the position is understandable. But that is not the case all the time. We have situations where the conscience of the person, you are elected by your people to represent those people, not to represent the party. And if you do that, you go against them, then 5 years down the line, they will remind you, you did not stand for us. You went and did something else.
Right.
And went and pocketed a few more shillings than you should have. So the consciousness of the people, the democratic right to be free to be wrong is necessary. And the idea of the leader giving instructions to the MP, whether it is Ruto or Raila, that they must vote this way, that should be thrown out. Because it is anti-Kenyan.
All right.
And then we end up with some of the things. I think one more point that I mentioned about Raila being the determinant of politics in Kenya today. I think I should add Okia Umtata there.
One of the people.
As a major player,
yes.
He's taken time. But clearly, this man is a determinant on some things that happen in the country. You don't know where he's coming from, but somehow he gets it.
Right.
And you cannot ignore it. There may be other people who may aspire to be like him, but he stands out on his own.
Yeah.
And whether it's good or not, that's good for the country because at least there is that exercise of the freedom and the passion. But in the final analysis, yes, Kenya is going through some challenges, but it's not lost.
It is not lost.
No, it's not lost.
We keep hope alive.
Yeah,
and as we all agree, we certainly need the government to succeed.
Yeah. We want it to succeed,
right?
And by stopping blundering.
That's true.
Let me just say my point.
1 minute, yeah.
Linda, a good solution to a problem begins by identifying the problem. And as Operation Logatuzi, we have understood that before we said we needed independence, we had it. But the same problems we had, which is poverty, ignorance, and disease continues. We were told we need a multi-party system. We had it. These problems continue to persist. We were told we needed constitutional reforms. We had it. We had to continue to have this problem. We were told it was dynasty versus hustler. So we need a hustler government. We are a hustler government, the problem persists. So our analysis shows that the problem we are lacking here is leadership.
Yeah.
And leadership has two variables, the leader and the leadership system. So the current governance systems of Kenya needs a reform. And at the same time, with not a very good leader, with a good governance system, the leader can be better. Yeah. And using Trump example, like Professor says the same. So Trump was not the greatest leader American had, but the governance system around him made him not able to do certain things. So I'm urging Kenyans now that this is the time when we need to look for which is the right governance system so that our fate does not depend on one person, but depends on our system as well. For example, that will help the issue of security, governance, food security, everything else. And I'm asking people that for me, this will be the best thing that Kenya need to focus now. Focusing on whether Raila is the greatest guy or Ruto or who will be misdirecting our point. Our point should be what sort of governance system can make not so great leader become a better leader.
Well put. Well put. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for speaking to us. That's all the time that we had this morning. I wish we would have taken it further, but all the same, we thank you, and we certainly hope to hold you or to have you some other time. Last speaker, Professor Fred Ogola, governance and policy expert, and of course right next on the other side is the lady herself, Betty Adera, the UDA woman or women leader? Woman leader, UDA woman leader. Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning, as well as Professor Macharia Munene, who's a political historian. Asante sana. And equally for the immense feedback that we get from you. We cannot go through all this because of time, but let's keep the conversation going. Shortly, we'll be having our very own Dennis and Albanas joining us to give us updates on what is happening in the world of sports. Don't you go anywhere.
Here, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics.
Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is a line. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori la historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutu.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's, after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes, and I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Lover of farming? Well, Kilimo Diaries is your home for different farming ventures, crops, animals, and so much more. Every Sunday. With a new year comes endless possibilities, and as we continue to tell the stories of those abled differently, do make sure to join us on Beyond the Limit every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
It's a new year, and with a new year, it means new business ideas, new trends in the market, and new tips to make your current business even better.
Giving an option for a customer to have unsecured financing enables them to get the product today without putting any collateral down.
And we here on The Grind, we will be at the forefront to keep you in the loop every Monday at 8:30 p.m.
Here, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics.
Sabak.
is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is alive. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori na historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutu.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's, after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes. And I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Lover of farming? Well, Kilimo Diaries is your home for different farming ventures, crops, animals, and so much more. Every Sunday. With a new year comes endless possibilities, and as we continue to tell the stories of those abled differently, do make sure to join us on Beyond the Limit every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
It's a new year, and with the new year, it means new business ideas, new trends in the market, and new tips to make your current business even better.
It is a beautiful Monday morning where we get to talk about all matters sports, more so the sporting activities that took shape during the weekend, as well as we fill you in on the latest happenings in the world of sports and what to expect in the coming week. Well, this is Morning Cafe's Monday Sports Roundup, and my name is Dennis Otieno. I am joined by Albanas Kisweli, who is a sports pro individual. Welcome on set, Albanas. How are you?
I'm good.
A lot to unpack this morning. Matters the Driftwood Sevens rugby tournament, as well as Shabana FC getting crowned the champions of the National Super League, among other topics that we're going to focus on this morning. Of course, from that perspective, we get to kickstart things with matters rugby in the country. Now, over the weekend, we witnessed the second leg of the National Rugby Sevens circuit, the Driftwood Sevens that took shape in Mombasa County. And we saw Kabras being crowned the winners of the second leg after defeating Menengai Oilers with scores of 10-7. So before we talk about that game, how about we have a look at the highlights of it? All right, well, we are yet to find the footage of that game. Albanas, let's talk about this game and Kabras and how they performed in the Driftwood Sevens. Well, the clips will be playing in the background.
First, Dennis, I want to remind you one thing.
Yeah.
Last weekend I told you that KCB winning the Dallas Sevens was only the beginning. It was only the first game of the season. Yeah. You don't judge a season by the first match. Look at where KCB were knocked out. Same as they didn't make it past that, right?
Yeah.
So Kabras, they are back. I think they're just going to show people what they are capable of doing. And by the fact that KCB even didn't make it to the finals, tells you so much. I'm just going to remind you whatever I told you last week. I told you that rugby is like football matches. You don't judge a team by the first 3 games of September and August. It doesn't happen that way. So I think it's just getting up to par and players just getting up to the speed of the game, and I think this time around Kabras, they were good. They were good at it. In Mombasa, they did it.
That's contrary to your statement in the previous episode when you said you can't judge a team by, the Driftwood Sevens, or rather the National Rugby Sevens circuit. Teams are just trying to,
getting up to it, yes.
Acclimatize, and players trying to exercise a bit more. But when we saw KCB winning the Dallas Sevens, you said it was quite too early. Now that Kabras is winning, Kabras is back.
I am saying that as far as KCB is concerned, KCB were good at Dallas Sevens. It's like Arsenal, and Bournemouth beating Arsenal or Man City 2-0 in the beginning of the season. It happens. Yes, KCB, are they good? Yes, they are. But again, I think KCB, they are not that good for the season. That's what I said actually. I said they just got it because everyone was not up to the speed. Everyone was just getting used to the new season, new matches. I said as far as the more season continues, everyone is going to get up to speed. The season continues. But again, for this time around, I don't think KCB is going to do it many times this season.
All right, so it is from that perspective that we get to have a look at the highlights of the Driftwood Sevens and how it panned out.
Made me proud as a captain. They've made the coaches proud, and most especially the brand ambassador and also the sponsorship. The finals was tough, but we managed through each and every hurdle that we had on our way. We managed to win that trophy. Perhaps everything was against us. Every odd was against us. They had a better footing than us. They were on the forefront in everything, in set piece and all, and everything. But we played to the last minute, beginning with the first normal 14 minutes that we played. We couldn't secure a clear victory, but we went on to play the extra time, which was also difficult because it was like a 50-50% possession on both sides, but we managed to secure a victory with the last drop goal from John Ekubu.
Clearly we can see what pumping and doing input into the game is able to deliver results. So definitely from SportPesa we see that the 15 million sponsorship that has gone into the SportPesa National 7 circuit is actually yielding fruits. And today we can see that the competency of the players, the productivity of the game, and even the entertainment to the fans has already been top-notch today.
You heard it from the captain of Kabras Sugar on what made them emerge victorious in that specific competition. And you've also heard it from the sponsors of the event, that is SportPesa, talking about the importance of sponsoring such sporting activities in the country in order to make sure that the players are going to give out their best performance when it comes to these local tournaments that you're having in the country.
Albanas, once again, Cabras emerging victorious, and the debate between Cabras and KCB, who's the better side, especially this season. I'm still going for KCB, despite the fact that they were eliminated from the semi-finals.
Cabras guys, don't listen to this one.
Despite the fact that KCB were eliminated from the semi-finals, you look at the results they were recording, from the round of 32 to the last 16 stage. They were defeating teams 31-0, 45-0. It is a team that when it's on a winning mood, it's actually, going for nothing short of a victory and putting out statement wins.
Dennis, I'm going to give you a very good example. When Man City is playing the FA Cup, they always meet the likes of Stoke City. They always thrash them 5-0. Always Man City. But whenever they come to Champions League, some things did change. So in this regard, I'm going to compare KCB with Man City. KCB is like Man City. They beat whoever comes their way, whoever is just as in tudogo is wananyonga tu. But whenever it comes to the big stages, I don't think that, okay, KCB are good, fine. Guys, let's accept it. KCB are good. But again, are they that good? I don't think so. I mean, this is just getting started, Dennis. And as the time goes, I will be with you here for the next five series games. I can assure you KCB is not winning one of them. Not a single one. Next, I think Strathmore is going to get some.
Yeah, Prince Lou. The next edition is Prince Lou in Nakuru.
I can bet on Cabras or Homeboys on that one. Next one, Strathmore. Simple that. KCB, you guys are good, but now, come on.
All right, congratulations to Cabras for emerging victorious and lifting the Driftwood Sevens leg of the National Rugby Sevens circuit. Now shifting focus from matters rugby to athletics. Over the weekend, we saw the Athletics Kenya organizing the World Athletics Championships trials at the Nyayo National Stadium. And we saw Athletics Kenya fielding the Team Kenya that is going to represent the country in the World Athletics Championships. Ferdinand Omanyala took part in the men's 100-meter race, and he emerged victorious in a time of 9.85 seconds. We also saw Beatrice Chepkoech coming from injury to win the women's 3,000-meter race. Albanas, Kenyan athletes, of course, taking to the Nyayo National Stadium and registering good results. Omanyala with 9.85. Do you see this team impressing at the World Athletics Championship?
Definitely, Dennis. Definitely. I'm so confident of our Kenyan athletes. I mean, it's like asking Argentina fans as if they are confident about the national team. Definitely, they are. Yeah. And in this case, as far as I'm concerned, I think Kenya, we have a good team. A good one. Like a good one. I mean, we have Omanyala guys. You have Messi in your football club. What are you afraid of? Nothing. Yeah. So personally, I think that the likes of Faith Kipyegon and Omanyala being that good team, I think it gives everyone motivation that we as a nation, we can do it. And again, it gives even the young players the confidence that, I mean, come on guys, if they have done it prior to us, maybe we can do it this time around. But I think in this case, coming to it, Omanyala is way too good for everyone. I'm going to remind you guys, we are looking forward to the day where Omanyala will slap Akani Sibine and Fred Kali. It's going to happen. But I think coming to this squad, I have very good confidence in Kenyan team. We are good babies.
Absolutely. One thing I like about the Kenyan sprinting, or rather Kenyan sprinters, is that despite the fact that Omanyala is dominating the world of sprinting, the other competitors in the 100 meters men's final were not left by such a huge gap by Omanyala, which it shows a lot of promise in Kenya's short races, because despite the fact that Omanyala is the one who's raising the Kenyan flag high on the international competitions, we still have a field of other sprinters in the country who can actually register good results. One of them is Omanyala's brother. He's known as Omurua, who also took part in the race, and it's Omanyala's family is promising to give us, two athletes who are very, very good in short races.
I think then is the fact that Omanyala's rise has given Kenyans confidence that, I mean, we are not just good in long races. We can even do good in short races. And I think if you look at it, the last Diamond League winner is Akani Sibine. He won with 10 seconds, right? So if Akani won with 10 seconds, and in this one, we had Kenyans with below 10 seconds. That shows you that we can do it even at the biggest stages. Not only Omanyala alone, I think. Even the young athletes, they have that confidence that, come on guys, whatever it is, whoever does it, anybody can do it, we can do it. They can win, we can win. And I think Omanyala and his family are just giving us that that warmth and that pressure, you come on, guys, we have it. It is simple. I think that's the case of whoever can do it, we can do it too.
All right. Ferdinand Omanyala winning the men's 100-meter race in the Athletics Kenya World Athletics Championships trials in 9.8 seconds. Also, Beatrice Chepkoech coming from injury to win the women's 3,000 meters race. And in the 3,000 men's steeplechase race, it is Emmanuel Onyonyi who emerged victorious. So how about we have listened to what they had to say after the races?
You know, when I started running, my dream was to compete, every month compete. And now God has given me the opportunity. And I believe my foundation has given me everything I need to compete every time. I can compete every week. I can compete every day. So with 2 months to go in the season, I don't see any question people should raise about that.
Natarajia kurudisha medali nyumbani ya Kaabu sababu last year nilipata stress fracture. Nilikuwa kweli kwa dunia mzuri, shape mzuri, isipokuwa tu hiyo stress fracture iliingia wakati ilikuwa imepatia like 2 weeks, then ikaniweka nje, lakini this time round I think tunaelekea kurudisha hiyo medali nyumbani.
Najua kuna pressure kule Hungary because kuna wenzangu kutoka Algeria, Canada, ni wall na kila mtu ametrain kwa because hata mimi nimetrain na juu yao na pia wametrain wakijua mimi niko sana competitive sana.
And those are just some of the athletes who are going to represent Kenya at the World Athletics Championships. Now, we shift focus from matters athletics to domestic football and the second-tier football competition in the country, that is the National Super League. Now, the National Super League, the 2022-2023 season, saw Shabana FC getting crowned as the champions of that specific league. And this is after Shabana FC defeated Kisumu All Stars with 2-0 at the Gusii Stadium to be crowned the champions. So Albanas, let's talk about this game while you're having the highlights playing in the background, especially the 2 goals that was scored by a player known as Nyambene. Exactly. And, Shabana making sure that they won this title at their home turf. It was absolutely ecstatic for the fans who had filled up the Gusii Stadium.
First, Dennis, I want to confirm that I was at Gusii Stadium on Saturday, and I can confirm that Shabana FC has more fans than Manchester City. If you are mad, come and beat me. First of all, one day we have to thank Kenyans. Kenyans stand up to this match between Shabana and Kisumu All Stars. But again, I think Sam Okoth has done an amazing job at Shabana. Those guys are playing beautiful football. You see, Dennis, you can be winning matches, but just playing around football. That's what many of them say it as. But Shabana is playing beautiful football, manze. As in, these guys, you lose to Shabana, you're not going to complain at it. Wameangukia nini? No. These guys are playing beautiful football. I saw the 2 goals by Nehemiah Onchiri. I mean, these guys they are just way too good. And Kisii fans, you guys, manze, you guys should visit Kisii one time whenever Shabana is there. And I'm really looking forward to the day when Shabana is meeting Gor Mahia at Gusii Stadium. It's going to be something else. Forgetting this word, but whatever it is, the atmosphere at Gusii Stadium was just amazing.
Exactly. And in order to get the full introspect of what Albanas is talking about when he talks about the atmosphere at the Gusii Stadium, how about we get to see the scenes at the Gusii Stadium, especially after the game culminated and Shabana were being crowned the champions?
Tyson Otieno, mzee wa chenga za maudhi.
Anazunguka chini ya uwanja.
Sasa anaileta kwa mguu kushoto. Kwa jina la utani. Wanaondoka hapa. Geuka vizuri.
All right, we are yet to get the clips of the fans of Shabana FC. It will be with us in a few minutes from now. But Albanas, many people have been saying the atmosphere at the Gusii Stadium, as well as the St. Sebastian Stadium, the stadium of Murang'a Seal. It feels like you're at the Anfield because you hear the cheers from the fans, and the atmosphere is just consuming and also compelling.
You see, Dennis, in football we have only 11 players, but at times some teams have 12 players. In this regard, the fans are the 12th player, and I think whenever you visit a stadium with these kind of fans for the home turf team, you are not really going to have it very easy, as many of you would think. And I think Shabana FC and their fans, they have really, the fans of Shabana FC, they have really given their players that pleasure of, you guys, we are not just 11, you are more than 11 players in the field. As in, the hype, whatever these guys, the support, I think Shabana, they are just way too good. If you can get to see how the fans feel that stadium, someone would think it's Raila and his Mandamano thing who are there, man. But those guys were more than that, man. If you ever saw what happened with Raila and Sabasaba, no, Gusii, we were more than that. To turn up, na tutazidi ku turn up wadau.
Absolutely. So how about we have a look at how the Gusii Stadium looked at during that match between Shabana FC and Kisumu All Stars. And now you understand why Albanas Kiswili, as well as many other Kenyan football fans, would want to see Gor Mahia or FC Leopards playing against Shabana FC, because that would mean a full stadium filled to capacity because of the magnitude of fans of both sets of teams. Albanas, once again, Gor Mahia coming up against Shabana FC or FC Leopards. This would be a match that would see, fans filling up the Kasarani Stadium.
It's more like Barcelona versus Real Madrid, like the 2016 edition, where Barcelona had the likes of Neymar and Madrid had the likes of Bale and Ronaldo. So I think this one, we have seen many political rallies in this nation where Kasarani was full to the brim. But no, for the first time, I'm confident that two teams can do it. Shabana, Gor Mahia, Dennis. I promise you that one. It's going to happen next season. Kasarani, itazaa hivi. Sure.
You are at the Saint Sebastian Stadium, and one thing I've also gotten to hear, and reports are saying that the stadium is well sought after. The owner of Muranga Seal decided to invest fully on that team and the stadium. The only thing that the stadium is lacking are the seating terraces and the stands. But when you look at the pitch, it's almost at par with the Anfield Stadium, or maybe Stamford Bridge or Manchester, the Old Trafford. Anything to add on to what you witnessed at the Saint Sebastian Stadium?
There's a very huge difference between the turf of Saint Sebastian and Gusii Stadium. Actually, I think Kisii County government, I've seen that some Nyamoya has requested the county government, the national government, to renovate that Gusii Stadium. And it's true, Dennis, if you have watched at it, many times kukinyesha, inakaanga shamba actually. Let's not lie to them.
There's a time a game had to be postponed because of heavy rains.
I think it's last weekend. Not even anything last weekend, but one. That's they had a game on Sunday, but it was postponed to Monday, 11 a.m. because of the stadium and as in. You guys, Kisii guys, come on. Tengenezeni uwanja manze.
But we can be Kisii guys. I mean,
no, Dennis.
The credit should be given.
Let's be clear.
The credit should be given to the owner of Muranga Seal for going a step further to improve the status of the Saint Sebastian Stadium.
But Dennis, as much as we are going to give credit to him, yes. But what about the others? I mean, we can't just be having only one good stadium in the whole nation, as far as the NSL is concerned. I know Muranga Seal will be playing in the KPL next season. But again, what about the other teams in the NSL? Let's be realistic on this one. Credits by to the Muranga Seal owner. He has done a good job, and he's actually continuing to work on a good job. And again, on Muranga County government, they need to work on that road to St. Sebastian. It's not good. We are not going to lie to anyone. The road to Muranga Sebastian Stadium, it's not good. They need to fix that one. Same case to the Kisii County government. I mean, Shabana is being sponsored by the Kisii County government, right? Why can't they fix the stadium? They need to do it. Yeah. As in, it's simple thing once. You guys, a whole county. I'm waiting for my to stadium unit kwa shamba. Come on, fix
but
this.
But Albanus, my point is, you know, instead of bashing the Kisii County government or Shabana FC as a team,
we give
bash the entire Kenyan football scene for not improving the state of the football pitches that we have in the country. Because remember, we have bid for hosting the AFCON in the year 2027, but CAF has deemed the Nyayo National Stadium not to par, not at par with the international standards. Same with Kasarani. But reports are saying that Murang'a Seal, the turf, is so good, a player can come from the Anfield and play at the St. Sebastian Stadium. So that's what I'm saying. Credit should go to the Murang'a Seal owner.
True. Accepted that one.
All the football authorities should follow in the footsteps and just take one step at a time, because Rome was not built in a day. And you've talked about the road exactly. You know, you've talked about the stands. These are things that you know, Murang'a Seal are going to build slowly as time goes by.
Dennis, you are very correct saying that Rome was not built in one day. Exactly. So that means we have to tackle one thing at a time. So this time around, we are to see. Let's tackle Shabana. You guys, if they fix their stadium, now let's move to the next person. Who is it? National government. Let's fix Nyayo Stadium. But if we tell them, you guys need to fix it, no, come on. If we attack one by one, that's it. By the way, actually, I think, county government, man, come on, realistically speaking. How much is it fixing the terraces at Shabana, at Gusii Stadium?
Yeah.
That's good. But again, congrats to Murang'a Seal. They have done an amazing job. Amazing stadium, that one.
Amazing, right?